Chapter 4:15. Lung Shiqi walked to the edge of the jade platform and said loudly, "Sect Master Hong, there's something I don't know if I should say." Hong Guangji, who was about to leave with his people, paused. He didn't expect Lung Shiqi to speak at this crucial moment. However, Lung Shiqi was an important guest that he personally invited and was also the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards. He still had to give him some face. Hong Guangji suppressed the anxiety in his heart and said, "Lord Lu, please speak your mind." Sect Master Hong, the reason why we came to the Wind Thunder Tower is to see the true face of the demon beast and to witness the beheading of the demon beast in front of everyone to comfort the souls of the innocent people who died in the hands of the demon beast. However, if Sect Master Hong gave the demon beast away so easily, wouldn't this demon slaughter assembly become a joke? Did you ask us to come here just to watch a joke? When Lung Shiqi said this, the entire place was in an uproar. First, it was the lower-level spirit cultivators in the Wind Thunder platform. They were also the ones with the most numbers. They were the first to be unhappy. Lord Lu is right. We came all the way to the Wind Thunder Tower to watch the execution of the demon beast. In the blink of an eye, you gave the demon beast away. Then why are we here? That's right. We came because we gave the Wind Thunder Tower face. Yet you left us here. What kind of logic is this? The entire Wind Thunder platform instantly became noisy. Almost everyone was expressing their dissatisfaction towards the Wind Thunder Tower. Man Tiangang and the others didn't say anything because they were a little surprised and doubtful. They were clearly the main characters today. Why did no one pay attention to them all of a sudden? Hong Guangji didn't bother with them anymore and directly gave the demon beast to them. Man Tiangang should be very happy, but now he felt a little strange. However, seeing Hong Guangji being condemned by everyone, he was still secretly happy. King Tai looked at Lung Shiqi and a trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. He wanted Lung Shiqi to speak for him. However, seeing that Hong Guangji had already retreated, although King Tai didn't know the reason, the Wind Thunder Tower and the Heavenly Cripple Union shouldn't be fighting today. King Tai's mission was also completed. However, Lung Shiqi's actions were equivalent to humiliating the Wind Thunder Tower. It was considered to be going against the Wind Thunder Tower. This made him feel surprised. The people on the Jade stage were even more surprised. Lung Shiqi's actions undoubtedly implicated the Wind Thunder Tower. Even if Lung Shiqi was the great supervisor, there was no need to offend a second-rate sect for no reason. Of course, the most surprised and angry. Now he was rushing to the treasure pavilion. However, Lung Shiqi's words made Hong Guangji the target of public criticism. Now, facing public anger, he definitely couldn't just leave. However, Hong Guangji didn't know why Lung Shiqi did this. The Wind Thunder Tower and the Dark Thunder Guards had always minded their own business. Hong Guangji didn't target Lung Shiqi and even gave Lung Shiqi enough face. However, if he stayed here for a moment longer, the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone might be lost. He was extremely anxious. He could only secretly remember this grudge and said in a deep voice, "Fellow cultivators, this is indeed the fault of the Wind Thunder Tower. I apologize to everyone here. However, our sect does have an extremely urgent matter to deal with. Please forgive us." At this point, Hong Guangji hesitated slightly and said, "Disciples, listen up. Quickly head to the treasure pavilion." Treasure pavilion? When everyone heard these three words, they finally understood. Something had happened to the treasure pavilion of the Wind Thunder Tower. That was why Hong Guangji was so anxious and even gave up the demonic beast. He didn't even care about the demonic slaughtering meat. In this way, many people could understand the reason behind his actions. However, they were also very curious. Who dared to have designs on the treasure pavilion of the Wind Thunder Tower? Lung Shiqi saw that Hong Guangji was about to leave and said, "I see. I misunderstood Sect Master Hong. I'm really sorry. Something has happened to your sect. I'm willing to help Sect Master Hong. I hope Sect Master Hong doesn't mind my low cultivation." Hong Guangji stopped in his tracks. He couldn't guess what Lung Shiqi was planning. However, at this time he couldn't be bothered to guess what Lung Shiqi was thinking. He nodded and said, "Lord Lu, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough." With that, he led the Wind Thunder Tower disciples and rushed to the treasure pavilion. Lung Shiqi mixed in with the crowd and followed. As for the remaining people, some felt that they didn't see what they wanted and left. There were also people who were curious about what happened to the treasure pavilion of the Wind Thunder Tower. They stayed here and waited for the results. The Sky Stem people were a little embarrassed. Hong Guangji agreed to give them the demonic beast. However, most of the Wind Thunder Tower disciples weren't here. There wasn't even anyone to greet them. They could only continue to stay here and wait for the matter to end before asking for the demonic beasts. Wang Tai's eyes flickered. In the end he also chose to stay here. After all, the grudge between the Wind Thunder Tower and the Heavenly Cripple Union hadn't been resolved. He couldn't leave in peace. As for the people on the Jade platform, they all left. They didn't stand up for Hong Guangji earlier. Now they didn't have the face to sit here. On the other side, Lung Shiqi followed the Wind Thunder Tower disciples and quickly rushed to the treasure pavilion. He delayed Hong Guangji for a while just now. He didn't know if Nine Leaves succeeded. When everyone arrived at the treasure pavilion, they saw a corner of the treasure pavilion suddenly explode. Boom! With a loud sound, a scorpion-like demonic beast with purple light flowing around its body rushed into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Following closely behind him was an old man who had lost half of his sleeves. He was the Grand Elder of the Wind Thunder Tower, Ji Dong. Ji Dong rushed out of the treasure pavilion and saw Hong Guangji and his disciples. He quickly shouted, "Quick chase! That demonic beast stole the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone." What? All the disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower, including Hong Guangji, were shocked. Even Hong Guangji, a master at the later stage of Gang Spirit Realm, was a little panicked. The thing he was most worried about still happened. However, he didn't expect that the one who stole the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone was actually the demonic beast he caught. Previously, Ji Dong only transmitted a message to him, saying that someone broke into the treasure pavilion to steal the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone. However, he didn't have time to say who it was. Hong Guangji was shocked and angry. Shouldn't that demonic beast be trapped in the underground formation? When did it run out? However, he immediately calmed down and shouted, "All disciples of Celestial Realm, follow me to kill this demonic beast." Immediately, dozens of people left the crowd and chased after Nine Leaf. Nine Leaf's voice also appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. "The formation in this treasure pavilion is extremely powerful. I'm injured. Come and help me later." Chapter 416. Nine Leaf had really succeeded. Lung Shiqi was secretly delighted. He saw Hong Guangji and Ji Dong leading dozens of disciples of the Celestial Realm to chase after Nine Leaf, but no one paid attention to him. He silently withdrew from the crowd and walked in the direction of the Wind Thunder platform. However, when he was halfway there, he activated the supercilious eye. Seeing that there was no one around, he sank into the ground and hid first. Then he began to try to contact Nine Leaf, but Nine Leaf did not respond at all. He must be trying his best to escape. Nine Leaf needed help, but Lung Shiqi did not have the ability to face two Spirit Gang Realm Masters and dozens of Celestial Realm Spirit Cultivators at the same time. Therefore he could only use his wits. Then Lung Shiqi activated the Fate skill. In the system map he immediately saw Nine Leaf, Hong Guangji and others. In terms of speed, Nine Leaf might be injured, so his speed was not as fast as Hong Guangji and Ji Dong. It would not take long for the two to catch up. Although Lung Shiqi knew that Nine Leaf had many secret skills, he could not help but be a little worried. If something really happened to Nine Leaf, that part of his soul would disappear forever. Lung Shiqi did not care whether Nine Leaf could sense his news or not. He immediately sent a message to Nine Leaf, and then the three-colored light flashed around him and he disappeared. In the back mountain of the Wind Thunder Tower, a group of masters were chasing after Nine Leaf. Hong Guangji and Ji Dong were the fastest, and they were both shocked and angry. If Nine Leaf really escaped with the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone today, then their Wind Thunder Tower would become a laughingstock in the North County, and even in the entire West Wilderness County. The demonic beast that they had personally captured had stolen their sect's most precious treasure. How could this matter of shooting oneself in the foot not become a laughingstock? Therefore the two of them were also doing their best to chase after him. The Wind Thunder Tower's cultivation method could trigger the power of wind and thunder. They were extremely fast and were about to catch up with Nine Leaf. However, at this moment, Nine Leaf raised his hand and threw out the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone. With Nine Leaf's power, the Wind Thunder Heavenly Lux Stone was like a meteor shooting through the sky. Hong Guangji and Ji Dong looked at each other with joy in their eyes. They knew that the demonic beast couldn't hold on any longer, which was why it came up with this plan. It wanted to give up on the Wind and Thunder Divine Lux Stone to separate the two of them in order to survive. Hong Guangji immediately said, "Junior brother Ji, go get the Wind Thunder Divine Lux Stone. I must kill this demonic beast with my own hands. This demon's methods are strange and hard to guard against. Senior brother, you must be careful." After Ji Dong finished speaking, he separated from Hong Guangji and chased after the Wind Thunder Divine Lux Stone. In the distance, the Wind Thunder God's Lux Stone was about to land. At this moment, a person in pitch-black armor and bathed in tricolored spirit light suddenly appeared. He reached out and caught the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone. This person was naturally Lung Shiqi. When the Wind Thunder God Stone entered his hand, Lung Shiqi felt a strange power coming from his hand. This power seemed to contain several different attributes, including the wind attribute, the thunder attribute, and a mysterious power. However, now was not the time for Lung Shiqi to study the Wind Thunder God's Luck Stone. He immediately stored it in the system space. Who dares to touch the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone? It was also at this moment that Jidong's voice reverberated like thunder. Jidong's speed was indeed very fast. When he arrived, he happened to see Lung Shiqi put away the Wind Thunder God's Luck Stone. He was immediately furious. It turned out that the demonic beast had a helper. However, when Jidong discovered that Lung Shiqi was only in the spirit aperture realm, his killing intent soared. He waved his hands and the wind and clouds suddenly surged between heaven and earth. Lightning flashed in the clouds. Then an invisible hurricane blew up, and this hurricane was full of countless wind-cutting spirit gang. Thunder flashed in the sky, and the Wind Thunder Spirit Gang led the thunder of heaven and earth to form a lightning python that struck down. This Jidong was actually a Spirit Gang realm spirit caster. Facing this terrifying attack, a blood mark suddenly appeared on Lung Shiqi's forehead, and his aura instantly soared to the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. He used the ghost steps of the nether spring and dodged back and forth between the wind blades and the lightning pythons like a spirit of the underworld. At the same time he held a 5th-level spirit sword in his hand, and the blade was stained with layers of blood. Blood evil chi surged up, shattering the lightning and wind blades one after another. Seeing this, Jidong's heart could not help but be surprised. The cultivation of the person who suddenly appeared was not high. Under his attack he seemed to be struggling to survive, but in fact he was not injured at all. Even a spirit cultivator in the early stage of the spirit aperture realm might not be able to take this move unscathed, but he was not injured at all. Doubts appeared in Jidong's mind. Who was this person? To be able to have such a powerful combat strength in the spirit aperture realm? His background was definitely not simple. However, no matter who the other party was, he must die today. Jidong's hands quickly formed a seal, and a waning moon completely condensed from wind blades appeared. Immediately, the waning moon burst with lightning. At this moment he had perfectly merged the power of wind and thunder together. The waning moon of wind and thunder tore the sky directly, and in an instant, it was in front of Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi's eyes narrowed, and he opened his supercilious eyes to look for the flaws. Then he held a 5th-level spirit sword, and when the waning moon of wind and thunder was in front of him, the spirit sword was unsheathed. In an instant, a blood-colored sword light shone between heaven and earth, and a strong blood evil chi soared into the sky. Endless sword intent broke out from it, and it actually shattered the waning moon of wind and thunder. However, the 5th-level spirit sword in Lung Shiqi's hand was also broken. Even the 5th-level spirit sword could not withstand the power of the sword, so one could imagine how strong this sword was. At this moment, Jidong's pupils shrank, because there was an invisible blade breaking into his spiritual space. It was a sword light that shook his spiritual space in an instant. Jidong hurriedly mobilized all his spiritual power to resist and wear down the sword light. With his spiritual power in the middle stage of Spirit Gang realm, in the end he consumed 60% of his spiritual power to block it. At this time he still had a little lingering fear. If he was not a spirit caster but an ordinary spirit cultivator, his spiritual power would have been damaged by this sword. However, when Jidong withdrew his mind, there was no trace of Lung Shiqi nearby. Jidong's old face was gloomy like the sea that was about to set off a tsunami, and a terrifying power would erupt at any time. At the same time he was even more surprised by Lung Shiqi's strength. The waning moon of wind and thunder was his full strength, and it was also one of his famous skills. Even spirit cultivators of the same level had to be very careful when dealing with it. But now, it was blocked by a person in the spirit aperture realm with only one sword. Not only was it blocked, but it also attacked his spiritual space. This even made him start to doubt his life. Chapter 417. Of course, Lung Shiqi wasn't as relaxed as Jidong had imagined. The divine ephemeral epiphyllum he had just used had been supplemented with the newly learned art of resisting fiend. That saber strike, on top of the original foundation, contained his fiendish aura, and had taken away more than half of the blood essence in his body. Only then was he able to block Jidong's attack and take the opportunity to escape. Originally, Leng Shiqi planned to return to Hanzhou City directly. But now that his identity was different, he couldn't disappear for no reason. Furthermore, Guan Feihong was still in the Wind and Thunder Tower, so he had to return to the tower first and show his face in front of everyone. Furthermore, Leng Shiqi used the demonic beast blood rune armor to cover his face and didn't use the ink jade sword or demon arrival battle blade. He wasn't afraid of being recognized. As for Nine Leaf, he wasn't worried. Only Hong Guangji was chasing after Nine Leaf. With Nine Leaf's ability, he would definitely be able to escape. Ji Dong definitely didn't expect that the person who took away the Wind and Thunder Divine Luck Stone would return to the Wind and Thunder Tower. But at this moment, Ji Dong's face was sinister and his eyes were filled with killing intent. However, he was helpless and could only meet up with Hong Guangji. When Ji Dong found his disciples, Hong Guangji still hadn't returned. After waiting for a long time, he finally returned. But when Ji Dong saw that Hong Guangji's face was also very ugly, Ji Dong's heart sank. Hong Guangji said solemnly, "Sigh, that demonic beast was too cunning and proficient in illusion techniques. It escaped. But it's good that we can get the Wind and Thunder Divine Luck Stone back." Ji Dong opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. He was too ashamed to say that the Wind and Thunder Divine Luck Stone was taken away by a Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator. Seeing him like this, Hong Guangji had a bad premonition. He hurriedly asked, "Junior brother Ji, where's the Wind and Thunder Divine Luck Stone?" Ji Dong's face turned red and said, "That demonic beast had an accomplice. The Wind and Thunder Divine Luck Stone was stolen." "What?" Hong Guangji roared in shock. Who is it? Who is it?" "I don't know either. That person's entire body was covered, but he cultivates demonic arts. He should be from some demonic sect." Ji Dong shook his head. Hong Guangji said in surprise, "Demonic cultivator? But there are only a few evil cultivation sects in the whole Western Wilderness Prefecture, and I have never heard of a Gang Spirit Realm evil cultivator. Where did this one come from?" Ji Dong clenched his teeth and said, "Senior brother, that person is at the Spirit Aperture Realm." Hong Guangji's eyes immediately turned cold when he heard that. He stared at Ji Dong with suspicion. Who would believe that Ji Dong, a spiritual caster in the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm, could not defeat a person in Spiritual Aperture Realm? Noticing that Hong Guangji's gaze was not right, Ji Dong laughed bitterly and said, "Senior brother sect leader, I've already done my best." However, although that demonic cultivator's cultivation was only at the Spirit Aperture Realm, his strength was extremely strong. He also knows an abnormally powerful saber art. Not only did he block my wind, thunder, falling stars and moon, he even secretly attacked my spiritual space. If it wasn't for my strong mental strength, I'm afraid my spiritual body would have been injured. Hong Guangji's first thought was that it was impossible. However, when he saw the sincerity in Ji Dong's eyes, he began to waver. Hong Guangji and Ji Dong had been brothers for decades, and they were also the ones who supported the current Wind Thunder Tower. And Ji Dong had never been greedy for power and wealth, so he took the initiative to guard the treasure pavilion. It was impossible for such a person to collude with outsiders to steal the Wind Thunder Heavenly Luck Stone. Then again, if Ji Dong really wanted to monopolize the Wind Thunder Heavenly Luck Stone, he didn't have to go through so much trouble. Thinking of this, Hong Guangji's gaze was no longer so aggressive, but filled with endless distress. Up to now, they not only lost the most precious treasure of the sect, but also let the evil beast run away. This time it was simply a double loss. Moreover, Hong Guangji had just promised to give the evil beast to the Heavenly Destruction Alliance, but the evil beast had already run away. How could he explain it to the Heavenly Destruction Alliance? Hong Guangji's Demon Extermination Assembly held today not only provoked the wrath of heaven and people, but also offended many people. There was a huge mess waiting for him to clean up, and he couldn't help but have a splitting headache. However, Hong Guangji had been the sect master for decades, and he quickly thought of some countermeasures. He said to Ji Dong, "Junior brother Ji, your top priority is to track down the whereabouts of the Wind Thunder Heavenly Luck Stone. The most precious treasure of the sect must not be lost." Ji Dong nodded solemnly. "Sect Master Senior Brother, don't worry. I set up a restriction on the Wind Thunder Heavenly Luck Stone. As long as I go back and set up the formation, I will be able to sense its location." "That's great. Let's return to the sect first and send the Heavenly Destruction Alliance people back." Hong Guangji then led his disciples back to the Wind Thunder platform. There weren't many people left in the Wind Thunder platform. Other than some of the lower-level disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower and the Sky Stem, there were only a few people left. Originally, there were still some people who were prepared to watch the show, but Hong Guangji and the rest had been gone for so long, and they didn't know when they would return. Everyone couldn't just wait here and do nothing, so they could only leave one by one. However, from then on, the Wind Thunder Tower's reputation plummeted. The only important person left on the Jade platform was King Tai. At this moment he was chatting with Mangon. His mission hadn't been completed, so he couldn't leave yet. Not long later, Leng Shiqi returned first. Seeing Leng Shiqi, King Tai, Man Tiangon, and the others immediately looked at him with inquiring eyes. Among everyone, only Leng Shiqi had followed Hong Guangji to the treasure pavilion. Therefore they also wanted to know what had happened to the treasure pavilion of the Wind and Thunder Tower. The Wind Thunder Heavenly Luck Stone was missing. This was the top secret of the Wind Thunder Tower. Leng Shiqi obviously couldn't casually say it. Leng Shiqi walked to King Tai's side and shook his head lightly. I don't know the details. When I arrived, Hong Guangji and Great Elder Ji Dong had already led the experts of the sect to chase after them. However, for them to value it so much, the Wind Thunder Tower must have lost something important. King Tai raised his eyebrows and said, who could break into the treasure pavilion and steal something right under Ji Dong's nose? Leng Shiqi looked at Mangon meaningfully and replied, this matter seems to have something to do with Alliance Chief Man Tiangon turned his head in confusion. How did he get involved in this matter again? Because the one who stole the treasure wasn't a human, but a scorpion-like demonic beast. What did you say? Heavenly Stem immediately exploded. That demonic beast escaped and even stole the treasures of the Wind and Thunder Tower? The people of the Wind Thunder Tower are indeed a bunch of trash. Just as he said this, a large group of disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower walked over under Hong Guangji's lead. Many of them heard his words and all of them glared at him. Chapter 418. Hong Guangji and a large group of Wind Thunder Tower disciples had just rushed back to the Wind Thunder platform when they heard Man Tiangon's words. Everyone was furious. However, Man Tiangon did not care at all. He directly said to Hong Guangji, since you have returned, I believe the matter at the treasure pavilion is over. Then shouldn't you give the demon beast to us now? Alliance leader man, why do you ask when you already know the answer? Hong Guangji's eyes flashed. Man Tiangon snorted coldly. Hong Guangji, you wanted to kill this demon beast in front of everyone to make the Wind Thunder Tower famous. In the end, not only did the demon beast escape, but it also stole your important treasure. Ah, what a joke. If that demon beast had been chased to death by us back then, how would you have ended up like this? Hong Guangji suppressed the anger in his heart and said, Alliance leader man, did you come here just to mock me? The demon beast escaped. I admit that I was careless. Next, we should work together to hunt down this demon. Man Tiangon sneered, work together? When sect leader Hong secretly captured the demon beast, why didn't you think of working together with us? We will catch the demon beast ourselves. However, after we catch it, the things on its body will naturally belong to us. Let's go. Then, Man Tiangon and dozens of experts from the East County strode out of the Wind Thunder platform. From the beginning to the end, they did not give Hong Guangji any face at all. Hong Guangji secretly clenched his fists, but he could not flare up, nor could he get angry. Because he was the one who was in the wrong, and he was the one who went back on his words. Man Tiangon and the others did not pursue the matter and chose to leave. It was already a good ending. If Hong Guangji dared to say a few more words of anger, Man Tiangon would really dare to fight with him. Now, the most important thing for Hong Guangji was to find the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Seeing Man Tiangon and the others leave, King Tai secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Now that the two sides would not have a conflict for the time being, although he did not play a big role in this trip, he was still very satisfied with the result. King Tai said to Leng Shiqi beside him, Lord Lu, it's time for me to leave. Why don't you come with me? Very well, Leng Shiqi replied. Afterwards, the two of them bid farewell to Hong Guangji. These two were high-ranking members of the Dark Thunder Guard and the Discipline Commission. Out of respect, Hong Guangji still personally saw them off. When they walked out of the gate of Wind and Thunder Watchtower, King Tai said, Your Excellency Lu has reached the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm at such a young age and is also the great supervisor. It seems that the Dark Thunder Guard Elite Union of our Western Wilderness Prefecture will belong to you soon. Elite Society? This was the first time Leng Shiqi had heard these words, and he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. However, he immediately thought of the quota that Eunuch Gao had given him a few months ago. If he guessed correctly, it should be the quota for the Elite Association. Unfortunately, Leng Shiqi still doesn't know what this elite does. There happened to be someone here who knew this, so he asked, "Your Excellency King, I'm new here and don't know what this elite association is. Please enlighten me, Your Excellency." King Tai was a little surprised at first, but then he nodded with understanding and said, "Your Excellency Lu hasn't been in the Dark Thunder Guard for long, so it's normal that you don't know about the elite association. In fact, this elite association is a feast for our Thunderfire dynasty. The two most well-known forces of the Thunderfire dynasty are the Dark Thunder Guard and the Discipline Commission. It can be said that these two forces are the right and left arms of the Thunderfire dynasty. In order to maintain the strength and vitality of these two forces, every 10 years, the dynasty will gather the young talents of all provinces and counties together and call it the Elite Association. However, those who can attend the Elite Association are definitely the elites of all provinces and counties. Because there is only one quota for each of the Dark Thunder Guard and the Discipline Commission. That is to say, there are only 2 people in our Western Wilderness Prefecture who are qualified to attend the Elite Association. It's a pity that I failed to get this quota when I was young, so I really yearn for the Elite Association. I think Your Excellency Lu is very promising." Hearing these words, Leng Shiqi thought to himself that so it was like this. At the same time, he also understood why Yu Ruifeng revealed such a shocked expression when Eunuch Gao gave him the quota. According to King Tai, there was only one quota for the Dark Thunder Guard, and Eunuch Gao directly gave it to Leng Shiqi. How could Yu Ruifeng not be shocked? Of the 36 provinces of the Thunderfire dynasty, apart from the Imperial City, 35 of them had branches of the Dark Thunder Guard and the Discipline Commission. This also meant that there were a total of 70 people participating in the Elite Association. These 70 people were the future of the Dark Thunder Guard and the Discipline Commission. And Leng Shiqi was one of them. He said modestly, "From what Your Excellency Wang said, this elite association is indeed worthy of its reputation. However, there are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the Dark Thunder Guard. Even if I wanted to, I might not have the ability. Your Excellency Lu is too modest. In the past, most of the people who went to the Elite Association were at the Spirit Aperture Realm, but there has never been a Spirit Aperture Realm supervisor or commissioner. Your Excellency Lu is the first, so the quota for the Dark Thunder Guard will be yours if nothing unexpected happens." "Haha, then I will borrow Brother Wang's auspicious words," Leng Shiqi said with a smile. The two chatted as they walked. Although they were talking about some superficial things, Leng Shiqi still received some benefits. Not long after, the two parted ways. After Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong returned to Hangzhou City, he directly went into his room and prepared to study the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. However, just as he took out the treasure, there was a sound beside him, which scared him so much that he quickly put away the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. He turned around and saw that Nine Leaf had already appeared in the room at some point. It was also at this moment that Ji Dong was seated within an extremely complicated formation in the treasure hall of the Wind Thunder Tower. There was a disc floating in front of him and there was something like a pointer on the disc. This formation was the one that could sense the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Ji Dong's hands formed seals and sent out rays of spirit light. The disc in front of him also began to spin. Ji Dong's eyes stared at the pointer, but after a long time, the pointer did not seem to have any intention of stopping. Ji Dong frowned when he saw this scene, and his eyes revealed traces of surprise. This situation meant that even this formation could not sense the location of the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Could it be that the distance is too far? That shouldn't be. As long as the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone does not leave the Western Desolate Province, it should be able to sense it. Just as Ji Dong was puzzled, he suddenly realized that the pointer had stopped. However, he only took a glance and the pointer actually began to spin again. Although he did not know what was going on, the pointer did sense the direction of the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Chapter 419. In the Dark Thunder residence of Hangzhou City, Nine Leaf said anxiously as soon as he appeared, "Don't take out the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone rashly." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's heart tightened. "Senior Nine Leaf, is there something fishy about the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone?" "Yes, there's a sensing restriction on it. Even if it's thousands of miles away, it can be sensed by the Wind Thunder Tower," Nine Leaf explained. "Fortunately, you only took it out for a moment, so it should be fine." Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed and he asked seriously, "Will the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone be sensed if it's placed in the mustard seed bag?" Don't underestimate the Wind Thunder Tower's ability. This stone is their most precious treasure and they spent a lot of effort on it. So even if it's placed in the mustard seed bag, it will still be sensed. But, don't you have an even more hidden space treasure? Speaking of this, Nine Leaves' tone became a little meaningful, but Leng Shiqi pretended not to hear it. He had been with Nine Leaf for so long, so it was not strange that Nine Leaf could guess that he had another kind of storage space. Leng Shiqi said, "Then what should we do next? Can we not take out the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone forever?" "Of course there is a way. I can use the power of the soul to isolate the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone, but I'm seriously injured now, so I have to recuperate for a while." Nine Leaf had gone through a series of battles and was now riddled with scars, so he really needed to recuperate first. Leng Shiqi nodded. "That's right. I'll have someone prepare the resources for healing later." "Okay, I'll leave it to you." Nine Leaf showed a trace of satisfaction. "As a reward, after removing the restriction on the Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone, I can give it to you to refine for 3 days. 3 days? Leng Shiqi was a little surprised when he heard this. The Wind Thunder Godly Luck Stone contained a large amount of extremely pure wind and thunder power. If he could refine a part of it, it would be very convenient when he broke through to the astral spirit realm and condensed astral spirit. What's more, it was said that this treasure also contained a trace of luck power. Although it was only a legend, who knew if it could be refined? Luck was an illusory concept, but Leng Shiqi knew that luck was actually very important. Not only could it avoid misfortune, but it could also be more compatible with heaven and earth. He had only paid some resources for Nine Leaf to recuperate, and in exchange he could refine Nine Leaf for 3 days. Could be said to be a very good deal. Next, Nine Leaf first used a secret technique to hide his figure, while Leng Shiqi personally went to the treasury. Ever since he was promoted to the Great Supervisor, he had never been here before. When he walked in, he was stunned because the treasury was almost filled to the brim with dazzling resources. Leng Shiqi himself did not know that he was so rich. However, Leng Shiqi thought for a moment and understood. Hangzhou City's Dark Thunder Manor had plenty of resources. Even though Duan Chun had taken a portion of them with him when he left, there was still plenty left. In addition to the goods transported from Misty Chi City and Deer Marshal City's Dark Thunder Manor, it was reasonable for them to have such a scale. Although there were a lot of resources, Leng Shiqi could not casually take them. Right now, he could be considered to have a large family business. Not to mention other things, just the Dark Thunder Manor in Hangzhou City alone had a few hundred people that needed him to feed them. The resources in front of him were the capital to feed these people. Next, Leng Shiqi began to choose the resources for Nine Leaf to recuperate, but at this time he suddenly remembered something. That was the system map. After he obtained a portion of the system's authority, he only needed to spend 10,000 system coins to fully open the system map. Before this, Leng Shiqi had specially left 5,000 system coins to save up for opening the system map. However, after he came out of seclusion, he had not been idle. Especially in the past few days, because his subordinates were not completely familiar with the Dark Thunder Envoy's affairs, there were many things that he had to personally decide, so he was very busy. Now that he had entered the treasury, he remembered this matter. Thus, after Leng Shiqi took some resources for recuperation, he also gathered a large number of resources that were not used often and sold them all to the system for 5,000 system coins. Seeing that the resources in the treasury had decreased by less than half in the blink of an eye, Leng Shiqi did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was stuffing his own pockets so much that his pockets were about to burst. However, he was not too worried. In another half a month, the offerings from Misty Chi City, Deer Marshal City, and 10 other cities would be transported again. At that time, the deficit would naturally be made up for. Leng Shiqi also planned to wait for a period of time until everything stabilized before opening a trade route in Hangzhou City. At that time, there would definitely be more resources coming in. After Leng Shiqi brought a large number of resources to Nine Leaf, she directly began to recuperate in her room without any fear of Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi rubbed his nose. Although Nine Leaf was still in the body of a demonic beast, she was a genuine demoness. Furthermore, she was a demoness that could bring disaster to a country. In the past, when Nine Leaf's soul lived in his spiritual fantasy world, Leng Shiqi did not feel much, but now that they were squeezed in this room, he felt a little awkward. The most important thing was that he had too many secrets. With Nine Leaf by his side, he would have a lot of inconveniences. Leng Shiqi looked at Nine Leaf and saw that she had already entered a meditative state, so he withdrew his thoughts and silently opened the system. He directly opened the system map and clicked on the words Open Map. Opening the system map requires 10,000 system coins. Do you want to open it? Leng Shiqi secretly took a deep breath and chose Yes. Immediately after, the entire system map trembled, and then the map began to shrink, and shrink again. The system map was infinitely zoomed, and Leng Shiqi's pupils gradually contracted. The surprise and shock in his eyes grew stronger and stronger, and he even began to doubt his own eyes. When the system map calmed down, Leng Shiqi was actually stunned for a long time. He was now in the Thunderfire dynasty. He had been to the easternmost Donglin county of the dynasty, and also the demonic Miasma mountain range to the north. Now he was sitting in the westernmost Shihuang county. It could be said that Leng Shiqi already spanned the east and west sides of the Thunderfire dynasty, so he could roughly estimate the size of the Thunderfire dynasty from the system map. Originally he thought that the Thunderfire dynasty was already very big, but at this moment when the system map was opened, the entire Thunderfire dynasty was just a small white dot on the map. A great country in this world was not even 1,000th of it. Even the Falling Star continent was nothing. In the current map, it seemed more appropriate to call this continent an island. There was only one thought in Leng Shiqi's mind: just how big is this world? Chapter 420. Leng Shiqi was in a daze in the room for a long time. After a long time, Leng Shiqi let out a long breath. He looked up. Although he could only see the roof, his eyes pierced through the clouds as if he could see through the 9 heavens. Leng Shiqi's eyes were full of determination. This time the system map was fully opened. Although it did not increase his strength, it opened the door to a new world for him. It made him realize how vast and boundless this world was, and how splendid it was. It also made Leng Shiqi's vision and situation change dramatically. Blood Clothing Pavilion, Liuha Spiritual Region, Thunderfire Dynasty. These were called top and extraordinary forces. They could indeed dominate a region, but in this world they were nothing. Originally, Leng Shiqi's requirement for himself was to become a powerhouse that could dominate a region. However, at this moment he had a higher goal. He wanted to stand among the powerhouses of this world. He wanted to climb to the peak of this world. Now, Leng Shiqi's pursuit of power was even more fervent, and he did not dare to slack off. He also knew that if he wanted to reach the goal in his heart, he had to slowly walk up one step at a time. Immediately, he set up the Yin-Yang Spirit Gathering formation and immersed himself in cultivation. In the next few days, Leng Shiqi began to gradually hand over the matters to Guan Feihong, Qiu Cheng and the others. He used all the time he saved to cultivate. During this period he was also constantly deducing spiritual skills and improving his strength at all times. It was not until half a month later that Nine Leaves' injuries finally improved. Of course, his injuries had not fully recovered. After all, he had been chased by the forces of the East County Hongguangji and Jidong. His external injuries had basically healed, but his internal injuries still needed to be slowly healed. However, Nine Leaf could already use a secret technique to isolate the restriction on the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Nine Leaf said solemnly, "I will first set up an aura isolating formation around the room just in case. If you have any methods you can use them. After setting it up, when I'm about to complete the technique, you can take out the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone." Leng Shiqi nodded to indicate that he understood. Nine Leaves' claws flicked repeatedly, and streams of purple light shot out like a fairy scattering flowers, weaving into a magnificent purple net in the room. Leng Shiqi on the other hand was much simpler. Although he did not know any formations or restrictions, he had goo worms. He consecutively released dozens of goo worms to crawl to the 4 corners of the room. Those goo worms opened their mouths and spat out a layer of faint gray mist, enveloping the entire room from the inside. Nine Leaf glanced sideways at Leng Shiqi and said, "I knew there was a strange aura in your body. It turns out that it's these little bugs. These are goo worms. I obtained some when I was in Zhulu country. They are not very strong in direct combat, but they have some wonderful uses." Leng Shiqi explained. "Yes, your battle prowess is superb, but you have almost no other support abilities. With the help of these goo worms, it is indeed not bad. Alright, let's begin." At this point, Nine Leaves' expression became even more solemn. Shortly after, Nine Leaves' soul body left her body, and her hands flew, sending out a series of mysterious seals. After a short while, Nine Leaves' soul body was a little weak and she finally said, "Quick." Leng Shiqi's heart moved, and the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone appeared in his hand. Once this treasure appeared, it immediately floated into the air. At the same time, Nine Leaf pushed her hands, and those mysterious seals poured into the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. In an instant, the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone burst out with a bright purple light. It was the power of wind and thunder. But these wind and thunder powers were instantly suppressed by 9-leaf seals. After the two were in a stalemate for a dozen breaths of time, the wind and thunder powers were completely defeated. At this time, the wind-thunder divine luck stone had no special characteristics. At first glance, it looked no different from an ordinary stone. Lung Shiqi and 9-leaf looked at each other and thought at the same time, "It's done. According to what we said before, I'll let you refine the wind-thunder divine luck stone for 3 days. After 3 days I'll swallow it directly." With that, 9-leaf's soul returned to her body, and she closed her eyes to rest. Lung Shiqi picked up the wind-thunder divine luck stone and was about to carefully examine it when 9-leaf's eyes suddenly opened. She said eerily, "Don't you dare play any tricks. I don't want something like the heavenly Fey soul crystal to happen a second time." Lung Shiqi couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Senior, don't worry. I'll return it in 3 days. Besides, you're right beside me. Are you afraid I'll play any tricks?" Humph. This time 9-leaf really closed her eyes to rest. After all, she had some internal injuries that needed to be healed. Lung Shiqi first held the wind-thunder divine luck stone and sized it up. He hadn't been idle these days. He ordered people to find all the information about the wind-thunder divine luck stone in Dark Thunder Manor and Bloodcloak Pavilion. He knew that the reason why the Wind-Thunder Tower regarded it as the most precious treasure was that it contained a trace of congenital wind power and congenital thunder power. It was said that this treasure was born at the beginning of the world. It was originally an ordinary stone, but at the moment when the world was formed, it accidentally absorbed a trace of congenital power. After countless years, the congenital power contained in it was so thin that it almost didn't exist. But even so, it was enough to support a second-rate force like the Wind-Thunder Tower. Once someone in the Wind-Thunder Tower broke through to Gang Spirit Realm, they could use this treasure to condense congenital wind and congenital thunder spiritual Gang Chi. With the help of the wind and thunder technique, they could be the best in the same level. Now the wind-thunder divine luck stone was in Lung Shiqi's hands. Unfortunately, he didn't cultivate the power of wind-thunder, so he could only absorb the power of wind and thunder very roughly. But even so, it could lay a solid foundation for him to break through to Gang Spirit Realm and condense Gang Spirit in the future. So Lung Shiqi didn't think much and directly began to absorb the power of wind and thunder. Just as Lung Shiqi began to refine the wind-thunder divine luck stone, Ji Dong, who was in the treasure room of the wind-thunder tower, was staring at the round plate in front of him with a pale face and sweating forehead. There were several spirit cultivators in the spirit aperture realm sitting around Ji Dong. Each of them was trying their best to transfer spiritual power to Ji Dong, because Ji Dong had been maintaining this formation for half a month. Even though he had the cultivation of the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm, he couldn't maintain a formation for a long time. But in order to sense the position of the wind-thunder divine luck stone at all times, he couldn't stop. So he had to let his disciples take turns to transfer spiritual power to him. And at this time, the needle in the round plate suddenly stopped and pointed in a certain direction. Ji Dong's exhausted eyes finally showed some joy, but then the whole round plate suddenly collapsed and burst. Puff! Ji Dong spat out a mouthful of blood and then fainted. His face was full of disbelief. Chapter 421. 3 days passed quickly. During these 3 days, Lung Shiqi kept refining the wind and thunder heavenly luck stone. He absorbed a lot of wind and thunder power from it and stored it in his body. The wind and thunder power could be used to defend against enemies, and it could also help him condense spiritual highland in the future. However, these powers were like water without roots. Every bit he used was a bit less, so he couldn't use them casually. In addition, Lung Shiqi felt it was a pity that he didn't feel the mysterious power of luck from the wind and thunder heavenly luck stone. Perhaps the wind and thunder heavenly luck stone didn't have such power at all. Even if it did, it would have been studied by the people of the wind and thunder tower. When the 3 days were up, 9-leaf woke up on time. She didn't say anything and directly sucked the wind thunder god's luck stone into her mouth. Then she burped and closed her eyes again. Lung Shiqi didn't care. He stretched his body and walked out of the door. Then he walked towards the meeting hall. In these 3 days, he ordered that no one should disturb him, so he was going to see if there was anything important to deal with. However, as soon as he walked out of his courtyard, he saw Guan Feihong walking towards him with a little anxiousness. "Old Guan, what's the matter?" Lung Shiqi asked with a slight frown. Hong Guangji cupped his hands and said, "My lord, yesterday Lord Yu sent a message asking you to go to the western wilderness city to see him. You said there's something important." Leng Shiqi immediately thought of the elite society that King Tai mentioned. He guessed that Yu Ruifeng wanted him to go to the elite society. Therefore, he was afraid that he would not be able to return in a short period of time. He still had to make some arrangements. It had been more than 20 days since he became the great supervisor. Whether it was the Dark Lightning Envoy or the Blood Clothing Pavilion assassins, they were all familiar with the various tasks of the Dark Lightning Guards. The other supervisors were all very honest, so it was easy to make arrangements in this regard. Leng Shiqi was most concerned about Nine Leave now. Back in Donglin County, after Leng Shiqi entered the Mirage Spirit Mystic Realm, Nine Leave had provoked a second-rate force, Extreme Fire Manor, and was hunted down. Fortunately, when the secret realm collapsed, most of the experts who were chasing after her had turned back. Not long ago, Nine Leave had wreaked havoc in the East County and was pursued by a large number of East County experts. In the end, she pretended to be captured and hid in the Wind Thunder Tower. However, she was still dishonest and stole the Wind Thunder Tower's most valuable treasure. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was thinking about what kind of trouble Nine Leave would stir up when he returned from the elite meeting. However, it wasn't convenient for him to bring Jiao out of the elite club, not to mention that he had too many secrets. The demonic aura on Nine Leave's body definitely couldn't be hidden from the many experts. If there was another demonic slaughtering assembly, it would be a good show. Therefore, Leng Shiqi had to first consult Nine Leave's opinion. Later, Leng Shiqi summoned several Dark Thunder emissaries and told them everything. Then he returned to the room and woke Nine Leave up. "Senior Nine Leave, I may leave for a while. What's your plan?" Nine Leave opened his eyes and rolled them like a human, saying, "I'll go with you." Leng Shiqi obviously didn't expect Nine Leave to make a decision so quickly, but he was also worried. "Senior, I'm going to attend a gathering this time. I'm afraid I'll meet many experts above the gang spirit realm." "It doesn't matter." Nine Leave shook his head and said, "I've swallowed a lot of precious resources recently, especially the Wind Thunder Divine Stone, which contains a lot of power. I'm on the verge of advancement. As long as I completely refine the Wind Thunder Divine Stone, I can almost advance. At that time, my soul will fall into a deep sleep. As long as you keep my body well, no one will notice it." Leng Shiqi was shocked at first. Nine Leave was going to advance again? He clearly remembered that the last time Nine Leave advanced to a rank 4 demonic beast was a few months ago. In just a few months, Nine Leave was going to advance again. It could be imagined that she must have swallowed countless precious resources during this time. Even Leng Shiqi couldn't help feeling sympathy for those forces in the East County. Leng Shiqi was surprised but also relieved. Nine Leave would enter a deep sleep state when she advanced to a rank 5 demonic beast. Even if he took her with him, he didn't have to worry about her spying on his secrets, nor did he have to worry about her being noticed by others. For Leng Shiqi, this was the perfect situation. Before leaving, Leng Shiqi went to the treasury again. In the past 2 days, resources from all over the country had been gathered, and the treasury was full again. Of course, Leng Shiqi came to fill his pockets again. Since he was going to attend this elite gathering, it was inevitable that he would meet all kinds of people. It was much more convenient to go back and forth with more spirit stones and resources. In addition, he also needed to save some system coins in case he needed them. In the end, Leng Shiqi left Hanzhou City with 30,000 spirit stones and a large amount of commonly used resources, as well as 3,000 system coins. Hanzhou City was only 3 to 4 days away from Western Desolated City. Because Yu Ruifeng had sent him a message yesterday, Leng Shiqi directly used the Fate skill to arrive at Western Desolated City in 2 days. After the system was fully opened, the Fate skill no longer had any restrictions, and he could use it anytime and anywhere. After Leng Shiqi saw Yu Ruifeng, he found that his condition was much better, and his cultivation had also returned to the unity of heaven and man realm. However, Yu Ruifeng also found that Leng Shiqi had changed a lot. Leng Shiqi's cultivation didn't increase at all, but it gave Yu Ruifeng the feeling that it was like a bottomless well. Under the calmness and steadiness, it contained a terrifying power. What made Yu Ruifeng even more surprised was that Leng Shiqi's every movement had a trace of an expert's demeanor. The so-called demeanor of an expert wasn't a domineering aura, but the opposite. It was a change in the structure, a sublimation of one's state of mind. A true expert wouldn't care about petty profits, and wouldn't be limited by their horizons, because what they pursued was even greater power. But Yu Ruifeng felt a trace of this from Leng Shiqi. Yu Ruifeng smiled. Eunuch Gao's eyes are indeed sharp. He directly gave you a spot in the elite association, truly a wise eye. Hearing the words elite association, Leng Shiqi knew that it was indeed so. After a few humble words he asked, "Martial uncle, I've only heard of this elite association, but I don't know what it's for. Martial uncle, please enlighten me." The elite association. Yu Ruifeng's eyes flashed with a trace of reminiscence. It's a place that can let you reach the heavens in a single step. Back then, I had the qualifications to sit on the patrol envoy position because I joined the elite association. Chapter 422. Leng Shiqi was shocked by Yu Ruifeng's words. It seemed that the elite meeting was a great opportunity. Since Eunuch Gao wants you to join the elite meeting, it seems that he intends to train you. You might even become the next inspector of the Western Desolate Province. Yu Ruifeng said. Leng Shiqi's heart tightened. He hurriedly said, "Martial uncle, I don't mean that. Nephew, you don't have to be like this." Yu Ruifeng waved his hand and said, "Before I went to Zhulu, I also pursued power. However, the experience in Zhulu made me realize that power is the most important thing. In the past, I wasted too much time fighting for power, but I never thought about one thing. No matter how many contributions I made, it was impossible for me to be promoted to the position of one of the 4 great chiefs. Because I have Eunuch Gao above me. As long as he's alive, I have no chance at all. Even if he dies, he will only pass the position of Grand Chief to his trusted aide. So now I understand that the inspector position is my limit. Since that's the case, I might as well pursue the pinnacle of power. Although I'm still far from the heaven origin stage, it doesn't mean that I don't have a chance. If I'm lucky enough to break through to the heaven origin stage, I won't care about the position of 4 great chiefs. In the end, power is the most important thing." Leng Shiqi was deeply moved by Yu Ruifeng's words. This was what Leng Shiqi had always pursued. Even though he also fought for power and profit, he would never be blinded by power and influence. Just as Yu Ruifeng said, if he was at the heaven origin stage, Eunuch Gao would have to bow to him. However, how could it be so easy to break through to the heaven origin stage? Sang Hetong didn't hesitate to sacrifice his entire sect's disciples and a large number of imperial guards in order to break through to the heaven origin stage. Unfortunately, he still failed. Thinking back to Meng Tianzong, the powerhouse from 10,000 years ago, he also used such cruel means to obtain more power. Therefore, one couldn't blindly seek power by unscrupulous means. At this moment, Yu Ruifeng finally talked about the elite gathering. The elite gathering gathers the geniuses from all over the Thunderblaze dynasty. There will be a round of tests at the beginning. This test will eliminate most of them, and those who pass the test will be qualified to enter the dragon vein to cultivate for a period of time. Speaking of this, Yu Ruifeng's eyes flashed with eagerness, and Leng Shiqi was also surprised. The dragon vein was the foundation of the Thunderflame dynasty. It was said that it was filled with an unimaginably miraculous power. Not only could it greatly increase one's cultivation, it could even allow one to be reborn and rebuild one's foundation, thereby improving one's aptitude. Of course, the most important thing was that the dragon vein was where the fortune of the Thunderflame dynasty gathered. It was usually guarded by many heavenly origin realm experts from the Imperial Hall of Worship. Not to mention ordinary people, even the relatives of the royal family would find it difficult to enter. If he could cultivate in the dragon vein for a period of time, the benefits would be unimaginable. I broke through to the gang spirit realm in the dragon vein. After returning to the Western Wilderness Prefecture, I directly served as the great supervisor. After that, he had a meteoric rise and smoothly ascended to the position of patrol envoy. Yu Ruifeng said with some nostalgia, "With your aptitude, if you can cultivate in the dragon vein for a period of time, it won't be difficult for you to reach the gang spirit realm. In the future, when you have enough qualifications and strength, you can take over my position." Leng Shiqi finally understood what he was going to do. The elite meeting was actually to train the geniuses of the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Department of the Thunderflame dynasty. The key point was the test. The winner's cultivation and status would be greatly improved, and he would reach the sky in one step. The loser could only go back the same way he came. "Martial uncle, do you know what the test is?" Leng Shiqi asked the key point directly. Yu Ruifeng shook his head slightly and said, "As for the content of the test, it is different every time. I'm not sure, but it must be the kind of task that tests multiple abilities at the same time. But I have some guesses about the test this time, just guesses." "I'm all ears." "In the past, the elite meeting was held in the Imperial City, but I received news that it will be held in Donglin Town this time." "Donglin Town?" Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. Donglin Town was the prefecture of Donglin County. This time the elite meeting was held in Donglin County. He didn't expect that after nearly a year he would go back to Donglin County again. He thought to himself, well, there are still some grievances in Donglin County that haven't been solved. Yu Ruifeng continued, as far as I know, His Majesty is not in good health and is getting worse and worse. This elite meeting held in Donglin Town may be related to this. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's thoughts raced. This situation was a bit similar to Zhulu country. As long as there was something wrong with His Majesty's health, the most important and urgent thing now was to fight for the throne. But Leng Shiqi didn't specially learn about the relationship between the princes in the dynasty, and he was not interested in learning about it. But this elite meeting might be involved in the fight for the throne. This was an unfathomable whirlpool. Once he was involved, he would be smashed to pieces if he was careless. This gave Leng Shiqi a headache. But you don't have to worry. Yu Ruifeng also noticed Leng Shiqi's strangeness and said, even if His Majesty is ill, he can still hold on for a few years. According to my guess, His Majesty wants to pave the way for the next generation before he dies. Donglin County is rich in terrain and has a sea area. Can be said to be a big piece of meat. But this piece of meat has been divided up by the major forces in Donglin County. When it comes to the dynasty, there is only a little soup left. So the test you will face after going to Donglin County is probably to deal with the spirit cultivator forces in Donglin County. Speaking of the spirit cultivator forces in Donglin County, the most impressive one was of course the Mountain Sea sect. As Yu Ruifeng said, Donglin County was rich, but most of the resources were swallowed up by various spirit cultivator sections. Among them, the Mountain Sea sect occupied the majority. It could be said that the Mountain Sea sect was a thorn in the side of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Leng Shiqi was secretly shocked. Does the dynasty want to make a move on the Mountain Sea sect? His Majesty wants to get rid of this thorn in his side before he dies. But he thought it was unlikely. If they only relied on the dozens of people who participated in the elite meeting, how could they be a match for the Mountain Sea sect? These are just my guesses. You will naturally know what the specific test is when the time comes. Yu Ruifeng took out a mustard seed bag and said, well, our West Wilderness County and Donglin County are at the east and west ends of the dynasty, the furthest away. I will take you to activate the teleportation array in West Wilderness County, but with my authority I can only teleport you 3 times at most. As for the rest of the journey you will have to walk by yourself. Fortunately, the elite meeting will only start in 3 months, so there is still time. I have specially prepared the things in this mustard seed bag for you. You represent the Dark Thunder Guards of West Wilderness County. When you arrive at Donglin County, you can't embarrass me. Leng Shiqi took the mustard seed bag and cupped his hands. Thank you for your reward, Martial Uncle. Well, come with me. Then Leng Shiqi followed Yu Ruifeng to the City Lord's mansion in West Wilderness City to activate the teleportation array. After half an hour, Leng Shiqi disappeared in the light of the teleportation array and embarked on the journey back to Donglin County. Chapter 423. More than a month later, Leng Shiqi walked into Shi City in Donglin County. This was the place where Leng Shiqi assassinated Lin Ying a year ago and let 9 leave absorb Lin Ying's evil aura. Leng Shiqi did not go directly to Donglin County. Instead, he took a detour to Shi City to fulfill a promise. Before Lin Hui died, he used all his resources to ask Leng Shiqi to kill Li Wan, the curator of the Li Dojo. Li Wan was the real murderer who paid money to kill Lin Ying. Leng Shiqi asked around in Shi City and knew that the most powerful and famous dojo in the city was the Li Dojo. Ever since the news of Lin Hui's death in the illusory spirit's secret realm spread, Li Wan had taken over the Lin Hui martial dojo at lightning speed, as if he had been prepared for this. In one fell swoop, he had become the sole owner of the Lin Hui martial dojo. With the support of a large number of resources, Li Wan also broke through to the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm and sat firmly in the top position. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was sitting in the restaurant opposite the Li Dojo, eating and drinking comfortably. Since he set off from the Western Wilderness County, he used the teleportation formation to cross 3 states, but he could only walk the rest of the journey by himself. Fortunately, he had the Fate skill. The journey that would have taken more than 2 months only took him a month. It could be said that Leng Shiqi had not stopped during this period. Now he could take a break. For the current Leng Shiqi, killing Li Wan, who was at the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm, was a piece of cake. A year ago, when he came out of the illusory spirit secret realm, the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm was still in existence that he had to look up to. But now, he could kill someone with such a cultivation. Even Leng Shiqi was a little surprised by his cultivation speed. At this time, 3 people at the table next to him were eating and chatting. Did you hear that the young master of the Li Dojo's cultivation has been regressing recently? I heard about this too. Some time ago, young master Li Yun was already at the peak of the pure spirit realm, and he was proud of it. But now, it is said that he only has the cultivation of the 7th level of the pure spirit realm left. He really deserves it. You can't say that. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? Don't you think there's something fishy about this? Tisk, even if there's something fishy, it's not something we can interfere with. Think about it carefully. A year ago there was also a genius youth in our Shi city who had his cultivation regressing. Oh, now that you mention it, I remember. A year ago there was a Lin Hui martial arts school. At that time Lin Ying, the son of Lin Hui, was also considered a genius among the rogue cultivators, but for some reason his cultivation had regressed all the way to the early stage of the pure spirit realm. Later on, Lin Ying seemed to have been assassinated and Lin Hui's cultivation level had increased greatly. He had obtained the illusory palace spirit and entered the illusory spirit secret realm. Who would have thought that he would die in the secret realm? What a pity, a martial arts club is gone just like that. Yes, there is indeed such a thing. Do you think there is a connection between them? Leng Shiqi, who heard these words, had a strange look in his eyes. According to these people, the young master of the Li martial arts club, Li Yun, seemed to be in the same situation as Lin Ying. Leng Shiqi knew very well that the reason why Lin Ying's cultivation regressed was because he had this old grandpa who was absorbing his spiritual power. And now Li Yun was the same. Could it be that Li Yun was also possessed by the evil old man's soul? At this time Nine Leaves' voice sounded, Leng Shiqi, let's go check on Li Yun first. I have refined the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone and now I am only a little bit away from advancing. If Li Yun really has evil soul power on him, it would be great. Leng Shiqi felt that he had to sneak into the Li martial arts club anyway, so he nodded and agreed. At night, Leng Shiqi sneaked into Li Yun's room without anyone noticing. Li Yun was a very handsome young man, but his face looked a little pale, as if his body had been hollowed out by wine and women. At this moment, Li Yun was holding 2 jugs of wine in each hand and pouring them into his mouth, looking like he was in a drunken stupor. It seemed that the regression of his cultivation had a big impact on him. Leng Shiqi saw this scene and shook his head secretly. Li Yun was far worse than Lin Ying in terms of temperament. Even if Lin Ying's cultivation had regressed, he did not slack off at all and continued to cultivate diligently. On the other hand, Li Yun began to give up on himself when he was still at the 7th level of the pure spirit realm. Senior Nine Leaf, did you find anything? Leng Shiqi asked. Nine Leaf hesitated and said, I can't see it for the time being. His situation is a bit similar to Lin Ying's but not the same. Let's use the old method and test him first. Then Leng Shiqi appeared. Before Li Yun could react, Leng Shiqi had made him fall into an illusion. Leng Shiqi released dozens of goo worms, most of which scattered in the corners of the room to isolate the aura and sound. There were also a few that climbed up Li Yun's limbs and bit him. Li Yun's body suddenly became stiff and couldn't move. Then Leng Shiqi flicked his finger, and a faint triple extinction sword chi shot out. With his current cultivation, even if it was just a sword chi, it was enough to kill Li Yun several times. Just as the triple extinction sword chi was about to reach him, a dense evil aura gushed out from the top of Li Yun's head, and as the evil aura rolled back, it swallowed the triple extinction sword chi. Seeing this scene, Leng Shiqi thought, sure enough, the method this time is better than last time, but it's still so impatient. After the evil aura defeated the triple extinction sword chi, it condensed into a huge old man's head. The old man's face was extremely ferocious as he stared at Leng Shiqi with murderous intent. Such a good body actually delivered itself to my doorstep. In that case I will laugh. However, before the evil old man finished speaking, Nine Leaves' soul body appeared. After seeing Nine Leaf, the evil old man's voice came to an abrupt halt, and he revealed a horrified expression. The nefarious elder's body trembled as he attempted to escape from Li Yun. However, Nine Leaf sneered and opened his mouth slightly. An invisible suction force easily pulled the nefarious elder into Nine Leaves' mouth. Before the evil old man was swallowed, he left behind a ruthless sentence. I left a mark on your body, just wait to be hunted down by my original body. Burp, Nine Leaves suddenly burped. Someone is coming, it's the late-stage spirit pulse realm. As Leng Shiqi did not activate his supercilious eyes, his senses were much weaker than Nine Leaves. However, when he heard that the person was at the late-stage spirit pulse realm, he knew who it was. In this Li dojo, only the dojo master Li Wan's cultivation was at the late-stage spirit pulse realm. Leng Shiqi muttered, "Just in time, it saves me the trouble of finding him. Lin Hui, I've completed your last wish." Not long after, only the bodies of Li Wan and his son were left in the room. Chapter 424. The next morning, the news of the strange death of Li Wan and his son from the Li dojo quickly spread throughout the entire Shi city. This matter directly became a hot topic for everyone. They were all guessing what kind of powerful person Li Wan and his son had provoked, and their most suspicious target was the Su dojo, which was second only to the Li dojo. But the Su dojo did not care about what those people said. After learning of the death of Li Wan and his son, the Su dojo began to wantonly suppress the Li dojo. After a while, the title of the strongest dojo in Shi City would probably fall on the Su dojo's head. And the culprit of this matter, Leng Shiqi, had quietly left Shi City and was heading towards Donglin City. He was only here to fulfill the promise he made a year ago, and was not interested in the grudges between the dojos. After absorbing the remnant soul of the evil old man, Nine Leaf finally reached the condition to advance again, and had already entered a deep sleep to prepare for his advancement. As for the threat of the evil old man before he was devoured, Leng Shiqi did not take it to heart. The remnant soul's target was always in Shi City, and it was always a pure spirit realm youth. This meant that the remnant soul of the evil old man was distributed near Shi City, and it was very weak. Moreover, as long as he finished participating in the elite meeting, he would return to the Western Desolate Province. No matter how powerful the evil old man was, it was impossible for him to go to the Western Desolate Province to seek revenge, right? Donglin City was located at the coastal area of Donglin County, and was not close to Shi City. Even if Leng Shiqi used the Fate skill, it still took him a few days to reach Donglin City. As the county seat of Donglin County, this city was extremely magnificent, and in terms of area, it was even larger than Western Desolate City. Leng Shiqi walked into Donglin City, and the biggest feeling he had was that he could actually clearly feel the aura of the sea here. Gentle sea breeze with a faint smell of the sea waves blew on his face, completely different from the dry climate of Western Desolate City. The flow of people in this city was also very large, but different from Western Desolate City. Many people coming and going here were merchants from the 6 countries of the Western region. And most of the people in Donglin City were overseas merchants. However, after these overseas merchants brought in large amounts of rare resources, they would rarely sell them to ordinary shops. Instead, they would choose the shops of various spirit cultivator sects. It wasn't that the spirit cultivator sects offered higher prices, but that if you wanted to do business in Donglin County, you had to curry favor with those spirit cultivator sects first. Especially the Mountain Sea sect, Shiju Wu and Tang clan. Leng Shiqi had never been to Donglin town before. After walking a few streets, he found that the Mountain Sea sect alone occupied 2 whole streets. Together with other spirit cultivator forces, more than half of the streets in Donglin town were controlled by them. Let alone the Thunderfire dynasty, even the Leng Shiqi felt that this was too much. The spirit cultivator sect led by the Mountain Sea sect was indeed strong, but if they did not give face to the Thunder Flame dynasty, something would happen sooner or later. Leng Shiqi's participation in the elite meeting this time might be related to these spirit cultivator sects. Not long after, Leng Shiqi walked to the gate of the Castellan mansion of Donglin town, where the elite meeting would be held. "Who are you? What business do you have in the Castellan mansion?" Before he reached the gate of the Castellan mansion, a city guard came up to interrogate him. "This is my name card." Leng Shiqi took out an envelope. The city guard opened it and took a look, then immediately knelt down and said respectfully, "So it's the great supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guard of the Western Desolate Prefecture. This subordinate pays his respects to Lord Lu." "Get up." Leng Shiqi continued to ask, "Are there any other Dark Thunder Guards or people from the Discipline Commission here recently?" "This." The city guard showed a hesitant expression. In fact, this elite meeting was an internal affair of the Thunderfire dynasty. It was a grand event for those who could participate, but almost no outsiders knew about it. In fact, many of them had never even heard of the elite association before. Therefore, from a certain point of view, the elite meeting also had a certain degree of secrecy. Naturally, those who came to participate could not be casually revealed. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes, revealing a trace of coldness. The city guard immediately felt a chill on his back. He quickly said, "Lord, please follow me. We'll talk as we walk." Leng Shiqi nodded silently. The city guard walked beside him and said in a pressuring voice, "Lord Lu, people have been arriving since 6 or 7 days ago. Now there are about 50 to 60 people." It seemed that he had come rather late. However, the western desolate prefecture was too far away. It was almost across the entire Thunderfire dynasty, so he had rushed over at full speed. "Do you know who they are?" Lung Shiqi asked. Everyone who came in would have a name card, so the city guard in charge of receiving them should know. The city guard's expression turned bitter. "Lord Lu, this subordinate has only been on duty for 2 days. I really don't know much." "Then you also mean that you know how many. Just tell me how many there are." Lung Shiqi's tone sounded very calm, but it contained an irrefutable aura. The city guard could only helplessly say, "During this subordinate's duty, 6 lords have come. Among them are Tianyun Prefecture's Discipline Commission's Dongfang Qi, Nanman Prefecture's Dark Lightning Guard's Buyangqiu, and Luoquan Prefecture's Discipline Commission's Blood Moon." Blood Moon? Hearing this name, Lung Shiqi's heart shook. He asked, "Blood Moon? What a strange name." Lord Blood Moon is Luoquan Prefecture's Discipline Commission's commissioner. She is a woman. This subordinate doesn't know anything else. Called Blood Moon and a woman. This made Lung Shiqi immediately think of Delta Origi. However, Wuxiang had mentioned that Delta Origi had entered the blood prison. It was unknown if she had come out or not. Even if she had come out, she couldn't have become a Discipline Commission's commissioner in such a short time. This was a position on the same level as the Dark Lightning Guard's supervisor. Moreover, to be able to participate in the elite meeting, not only did one need to have great potential and outstanding strength, one also needed to have great contributions. Therefore, this Blood Moon was likely not a Delta Origi. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. "Lord, this way please." The city guard led Lung Shiqi into a unique small courtyard. "Lord Lu, please rest here for a few days. This subordinate will call 2 servants to serve you." Lung Shiqi waved his hand and said, "There is no need for servants. You can go." Yes, this subordinate obeys. After the city guard left, Lung Shiqi first released a few goo worms and hid them in the corners of the courtyard. If anyone trespassed, he would be the first to know. Just as Lung Shiqi was about to step into the room in the small courtyard, 4 people walked over while chatting and laughing. Lung Shiqi subconsciously turned his head and saw 2 acquaintances among the 4. And 2 acquaintances. Chapter 425. Among the 4 people there were 2 men and 2 women. The 2 men looked to be around 30 years old, and they both had imposing appearances and extraordinary bearings. Of the 2 women, one was wearing a black dress with a veil on her face, giving off a mysterious feeling. Seeing this woman, Lung Shiqi was secretly surprised. This person was the woman in the black veil that he had met several times in the illusory spirit secret realm. Lung Shiqi remembered very clearly that he had almost killed this woman twice, but unfortunately he failed. The first time he was interrupted by the people who were chasing him. The second time, this woman used an extremely powerful secret technique to escape. At that time, Lung Shiqi knew from the woman's conversation that she was a member of the Dark Thunder Guard, but he never expected to meet her again today. Furthermore, they had met as colleagues. At this time, the woman in the black veil had already reached the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, and her aura had reached perfection. It seemed that she could break through to the Spirit Aperture realm at any time. As for the woman next to her, her blood-red robe made her look exceptionally cold and elegant. When Lung Shiqi saw her face, he couldn't help but be stunned. This woman was actually Delta Origi. However, the current Delta Origi was a bit different from what he remembered. If he counted, Delta Origi should be around 16 years old, but at this moment she looked like she was in her 20s. Her facial features and figure had all grown up. She was like a blooming blood-red rose, so gorgeous, so captivating, but also so powerful that she could hurt people without them noticing. Lung Shiqi just thought that Delta Origi couldn't possibly come here, but in the blink of an eye he was slapped in the face. Therefore he still kept his head turned, and the 4 people naturally noticed him. The 2 men immediately walked over with a smile. The woman in the black veil stared at Lung Shiqi for a while. She actually felt that Lung Shiqi had a familiar feeling. However, she had never seen this person before, so she followed with doubts in her heart. As for Delta Origi, she recognized Lung Shiqi the moment she saw him. She noticed the astonishment in Lung Shiqi's eyes. She smiled inwardly and walked over. "I am the Commissioner of Tianyun County's Discipline Department, Dongfang Qi. I am the Supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guard of the Southern Barbarian Region, Buyangqiu. May I know your name?" The 2 men introduced themselves one after another. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, aren't these two the people who just arrived here 2 days ago? However, since the other party treated him with respect, Leng Shiqi also cupped his fists and said, I am the great supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guard of the Western Desolate Province, Lu Xingji. The great supervisor? When they heard this, they were all shocked. It was the same for the Delta Origi. Dong Fangqi and the others secretly sensed Leng Shiqi's cultivation and discovered that he was also at the spirit aperture stage. They were even more surprised. A spirit aperture realm cultivator could become a great supervisor? Was it because he was really capable, or was there some other reason? They all began to secretly guess Leng Shiqi's identity, but their faces quickly raised a smile. No matter how Leng Shiqi became the great supervisor, they didn't have the ability to care. As the saying goes, a higher rank can crush people to death. Since Leng Shiqi was the great supervisor, his position was higher than theirs. Of course, they had to greet him with a smile. At this time, the black-veiled woman and the Delta Origi also arrived. The black-veiled woman's eyes flashed as she looked at Leng Shiqi and said, I am Lian Yi from the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. When Leng Shiqi heard this, he secretly thought, so her name is Lian Yi. She is actually from the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. The Dark Thunder Guard headquarters was located deep in the Imperial City. It was the center of the Dark Thunder Guard's highest authority. There were countless strange people and strange things hidden deep inside. There were also 4 general managers and the commander of the Dark Thunder Guard personally overseeing it. It could be said that those who could enter the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters were all experts among experts, the elites among elites. But regarding this Lian Yi, Leng Shiqi had exchanged blows with her several times. It wasn't that he looked down on her, but he felt that although Lian Yi's cultivation was much higher than people of the same age, her temperament and ability were still a bit lacking. After entering the illusory spirit secret realm, Lian Yi's mission was to find Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators. However, she rashly attacked Leng Shiqi. If not for the fact that Leng Shiqi couldn't be bothered to bicker with her, he would have forced her to use her life-saving trump card on the spot. As a result, she would be in great danger in the secret realm. It would be difficult for her to even protect herself, let alone complete the mission. After leaving the illusory spirit secret realm, Lian Yi was lucky enough to run into the heavily injured Su Lu. However, she exposed her identity without saying a word. In the end, she was delayed by Su Lu's expedient plan. If not for Leng Shiqi's arrival, Lian Yi might not have killed Su Lu and left behind a future threat. Therefore, in Leng Shiqi's view, Lian Yi was still too young. Perhaps she still had the mentality of a little girl. However, for such a person to be able to enter the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters, there was no need to think about it. Leng Shiqi smiled at Lian Yi and said, So it's Miss Lian Yi, right? At this moment, Bu Yangqiu turned around and said, This lady is called Blood Moon. She's from the Discipline Division of Luoquan Prefecture. Blood Moon was naturally Delta Origi. However, Delta Origi's current persona was very cold, which was very similar to her nature. Delta Origi nodded at Leng Shiqi as a greeting. Bu Yangqiu laughed heartily and said, Brother Lu, we were just about to go out for a stroll. How about we go together? To be qualified to participate in the elite meeting, these people were definitely the most capable people in their respective prefectures. Although they were each other's opponents, they were scattered all over the Thunderblaze dynasty. It could be said that apart from the competitive relationship in the elite meeting, there was almost no conflict of interest between them. Therefore, it was definitely profitable for them to make friends with each other. Leng Shiqi immediately said, Then I'll accept your invitation. That's great. Brother Lu, please. Please. As a result, the original 4 people became 5 people. Since they had nothing to do, they leisurely strolled around Donglin town. They even drank and helped each other in restaurants. It was not until the night fell that they returned. However, when they were separated, Leng Shiqi secretly winked at Delta Origi. When it was late at night, Leng Shiqi rolled his eyes and avoided everyone, quietly sneaking into Delta Origi's room. Delta Origi was already sitting on a chair, playing with a white jade dagger in her hand. It seemed that she had been waiting for Leng Shiqi for a long time. You're really slow. Delta Origi muttered with slight dissatisfaction. Leng Shiqi laughed dryly. Now that there are so many experts in the city lord's residence, I have to be cautious. When he saw Delta Origi, he had countless questions in his heart. However, Delta Origi asked first. What's your relationship with that Lian Yi? Her voice sounded slightly cold, which made Leng Shiqi's heart skip a beat. Chapter 426. Lung Shiqi felt a bit of a headache when faced with this question. Gu San slanted his eyes and said, "Don't say that you have nothing to do with her. Ever since she saw you, her eyes have been faintly discernible looking at you. I also saw it clearly." Lung Shiqi shook his head helplessly. He could only tell the story of him and Lian Yi in the most sincere tone. At the end he added, "It's impossible for her to recognize me." In fact, Lung Shiqi had another thought. Lian Yi's memories had been secretly tampered with by Meng Tianzong. However, this was only his guess. Moreover, Meng Tianzong's matter was a worry in his heart, so he didn't say it out loud. Delta Orgi chuckled after hearing this and said, "So you two are still life and death enemies? I was just asking casually, don't think too much." "If I wasn't thinking too much, why did you ask?" Of course Lung Shiqi didn't say this out loud. He directly changed the topic and asked, "Right, I heard from Master that you went to the blood prison?" "That's right." Delta Orgi replied indifferently, "Although the blood prison is full of dangers, there are also many opportunities. I broke through to the spirit aperture realm in the blood prison." Delta Orgi stared at Lung Shiqi. "Even so, I wasn't as fast as you." Lung Shiqi also understood that strength didn't come out of nowhere. Whether it was him or Delta Orgi, they both experienced countless life and death situations to have their cultivation soar. In other words, they exchanged their lives for strength. He also knew that Delta Orgi was a strong person, so he continued to change the topic. "It's really unexpected to see you here. When did you leave the blood prison? How did you join the Discipline Commission and participate in the elite meeting?" Lung Shiqi asked 3 questions in a row. Delta Orgi rolled her eyes at him, but she still answered, "After breaking through to the spirit aperture realm, I took the initiative to leave the blood prison. Later, Master told me about the Blood Seed Project and said that you had already made a name for yourself in the Western Desolate Province. So, I also started the Blood Seed Project and entered the Discipline Commission. As for why I can participate in the elite meeting, have you heard of Blood Demon Venerable?" "Blood Demon Venerable? How did this matter involve this person again?" Lung Shiqi carefully searched through his memories and shook his head. "No. Venerable Blood Demon Venerable is a rogue cultivator, but he is a Sky Origin Realm expert." Lung Shiqi was shocked. It was his first time hearing about a Tianyuan stage itinerant cultivator. Then, Delta Orgi's next words, Lung Shi said, "Venerable is Demon Venerable as Bone is. Venerable Blood Demon Venerable? Is Venerable Demon Venerable?" Lung Shiqi instantly remembered that his master Wuxia also had another identity in the outside world. Back then, Wuxia used that identity to arrange for him to join the Dark Thunder Guards. He couldn't help but think that the Blood Seed Project might have been in the Blood Seed Project several generations ago. The Blood Seed Project didn't just rely on Lung Shiqi and the others, it also needed the efforts of several generations to break through the current shackles. So, this was a plan that lasted several hundred years. Delta Orgi continued, "Venerable Blood Demon Venerable's face is too big. Moreover, he has an old friendship with the provost of Luoquan Prefecture's Discipline Commission, so he easily let me enter the Discipline Commission. Moreover, he even stood his ground and allowed me to join the elite meeting." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi finally understood why Delta Orgi could come here. Although Delta Orgi had just joined the Discipline Commission of Luoquan County, she had Venerable Blood Demon Venerable as her backer. Many problems were easily solved. "So that's how it is," Lung Shiqi said. Delta Orgi said, "Of course, but I heard from Venerable Bone that there may be more to this elite meeting. We have to be careful. And this time, the Donglin County branch will fully cooperate with us and help us get the biggest credit." Hearing the first half of Delta Orgi's words, Lung Shiqi also remembered that Yu Ruifeng had said that His Majesty was not feeling well. This elite meeting might also be related to the fight for the throne. When he heard the second half of the sentence, he immediately thought of a person, Feng Shamo. More than a year ago, before Lung Shiqi returned to the General Pavilion to be promoted as a blood-clothed assassin, Feng Shamo had also hinted that Lung Shiqi should stand in his team. Now that Lung Shiqi had returned to Donglin County, if he wanted to use the power of the blood-clothed pavilion, he was bound to cross paths with Feng Shamo again, which Lung Shiqi did not want to see. Because he did not want to participate in the competition for the next pavilion master so early. Now that he thought about it, it was better to stay in the West Wilderness County. The sky was high and the Emperor was far away. No one could control him. Then the two chatted casually for a while and Lung Shiqi went back. In the next few days, in addition to cultivation, he also met other people who participated in the elite meeting, but he did not get too close to them. It was not until half a month later that the last person of the elite meeting finally arrived. This person had some connections with Leng Shiqi, because he came from the Discipline Commission of the West Wilderness County. His name was Su Gaojia. Su Gaojia had actually teleported 2 or 3 counties away like Leng Shiqi, but he did not have the fate skill, so he was the last person to arrive in Donglin County even though he moved at full speed. Once Su Gaojia arrived, it meant that the elite meeting could begin. On this day, there were nearly 100 people sitting in the hall of the governor's mansion. These people were all elites from the various counties of the Thunderblaze dynasty. At this time, the entire hall was unusually quiet, and everyone was waiting for the person who would host the elite meeting. According to the past practice, there should be 2 people who would host the elite meeting, one from the Dark Thunder Guards and the other from the Discipline Commission. And they must be the higher-ups. While waiting, Leng Shiqi looked around. At this moment, those who could sit here were the best young elites selected from all over the country. Judging from their appearance, most of them looked to be in their 20s or 30s. However, Leng Shiqi knew that they were not young, at least around 40 years old. And the reason why they looked so young was because they had broken through to the spiritual pulse realm early enough. After entering the 4 realms of heaven and man, their bodies would be baptized by the power of heaven and earth. From then on, they would be reborn and their lifespan would be extended. Naturally, they would also be able to slow down aging. If a person broke through to the spiritual pulse realm very early, they would be able to maintain their youthful appearance for dozens of years. At this time, the host of Donglin County, City Lord Feng Luan, led 2 people into the hall. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted, and then they were all secretly surprised. Among the 2 people, there was a woman in a palace dress who was graceful and luxurious. She was one of the 4 punishment envoys of the Discipline Commission, Lei Mayan. Not only did she have the powerful cultivation of unity of heaven and man, but she was also a relative of the Thunderblaze dynasty and was a princess. As for the other person, Leng Shiqi recognized him. He was one of the 4 Dark Thunder Guards, Eunuch Gao. Chapter 427. Lei Mayan and Eunuch Gao. These 2 are not only the higher-ups of the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards, they also have very high statuses. Lei Mayan is a Junju, while Eunuch Gao is one of His Majesty's personal attendants. It can be said that these 2 are deeply imprinted with the mark of the Thunder Flame dynasty, engraved with the mark of the imperial family. The moment the 2 of them appear, a slight noise immediately resounds in the hall. Whether it's the Dark Thunder Guards or the Discipline Commission, Lei Mayan and Eunuch Gao are the superiors of superiors. It's rare for everyone to see them on a daily basis. Their appearance here at the same time naturally causes a commotion. However, these 2 have grave expressions on their faces, especially Eunuch Gao, whose eyes reveal a bit of gloominess. Wherever his gaze passes, everyone lowers their heads, not daring to meet his gaze. Eunuch Gao looks around at everyone. Only when he sees Leng Shiqi, his expression slightly pauses. He and Lei Mayan walk to the top of the hall. After they sit down, everyone stands up and says in unison, "Greetings Steward Gao, greetings Punishment Envoy Lei." Eunuch Gao sits expressionlessly, without any intention of opening his mouth to speak. Lei Mayan smiles sweetly and says, "Everyone is too courteous, please sit." After everyone sits down, Lei Mayan continues, "Since everyone is able to sit here, you must be the young elites of various provinces and counties, and will be the pillars of my Thunder Flame dynasty in the future. According to the usual practice of previous years, there will be a test after the elite meeting begins. I believe you all know about this." Speaking to here, Lei Mayan changes the topic, but this year is different from the past. Hearing this, everyone shows a puzzled expression, but they don't ask any questions. In the past it was called a test, but this year, to be more precise, it should be a mission. Lei Mayan's eyes faintly reveal traces of cold light. The mission this time must be completed. There is only success, no failure. And those who perform outstandingly in the mission can enter the next round of the elite meeting. As for the others, they can go back to where they came from. Leng Shiqi also frowns slightly. They actually came here to complete a mission, and it's a mission that must be completed. Hearing Lei Mayan's tone, that mission is probably not simple. At this moment, Lei Mayan hinted to City Lord Feng Luan. Feng Luan took 2 steps forward and waved his arm, shooting out a ball of green light. The green light condensed into 3 lines of words in the air, each of which was 10 feet away from the other. Everyone who saw these words secretly sucked in a breath of cold air, including Leng Shiqi. The 3 lines read, "Destroy the second-rate sect, the Great Righteousness Sect. Destroy the second-rate sect, the Salt Clan. Destroy the second-rate sect, Extreme Fire Manor. Their mission was to destroy these spirit cultivator forces? And all of them were second-rate sects. Feng Luan said, there are 3 missions here. You can freely choose one of them. Those who choose the same mission will form a team. From now on you can't rely on the power and help behind you. You'll have to rely on your own abilities to complete the mission. As soon as this was said, many people looked at each other. These 3 missions were to destroy second-rate forces. Although more than 90% of the people present had the cultivation of the spirit aperture realm, if they all attacked together, it was indeed possible to destroy a second-rate sect. But now they had to be separated into 3 groups. This way it would be very difficult to destroy a second-rate sect. Assuming that the number of people in each group was about the same, there would only be a little over 20 people. Theoretically speaking, it was impossible to complete the mission with so few people. Of course, if the mission was simple, there would be no need for these elites gathered from all over the empire to do it. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes as he looked at the 3 missions. He had stayed in Donglin County for a period of time, so he was quite clear about the forces here. The Great Righteousness sect was a rather interesting sect. This sect didn't accept disciples based on aptitude or talent, but based on whether or not you had the code of brotherhood. In the Great Righteousness sect, brotherhood was the most important. The Great Righteousness sect walked the world with the code of brotherhood, eliminating violence and bringing peace to the people. But the Thunderfire Empire actually wanted to destroy such a sect? Leng Shiqi's thoughts turned rapidly. He could only think of one possibility, and that was that the Great Righteousness sect was a vassal sect of the Mountain Sea sect. Could also be said that the Great Righteousness sect was a pawn of the Mountain Sea sect. The Thunderfire Empire saw the Mountain Sea sect as a thorn in their side, so they wanted to get rid of their pawn first. Leng Shiqi's thoughts weren't without reason, because it wasn't just the Great Righteousness sect, but also the Salt Gang. The Salt Gang was a sect that made a fortune in the salt transportation business. The Salt Gang controlled more than half of the salt transportation business in Donglin County, so they were simply overflowing with wealth. Such a sect would be coveted by many people, but the Salt Gang was very smart. They took the initiative to become a vassal of the Mountain Sea sect. Every year they would hand over 50% of their profits to the Mountain Sea sect in order to protect themselves. Therefore, the Salt Gang could be considered the Mountain Sea sect's money bag. Whether it was the Great Righteousness sect or the Salt Gang, it was understandable that they were on the Thunderfire Empire's blacklist, but Leng Shiqi felt that it was a little strange that the Extreme Fire Manor was also on the list. The Extreme Fire Manor was originally far away from the Mountain Sea sect, and it also didn't have any connections with the Mountain Sea sect, so why was it also on the Thunderfire Empire's blacklist? Looking at the 3 missions, Leng Shiqi began to think about which one to choose. Not only him but the others were also whispering in low voices. Some of the people who were familiar with each other also gathered in groups of 3 to 5 to discuss. Leng Shiqi and Delta Origi silently looked at each other, wanting to seek her opinion. Delta Origi slightly shrugged her shoulders, indicating that it didn't matter what she chose. Leng Shiqi wasn't in a hurry to choose, so he decided to see what the others chose first. Not long after, a group of people walked forward and stood in front of the different missions. Time slowly passed, and Leng Shiqi realized that the number of people for the 3 missions was about the same. Although it was said that the more people there were, the easier it would be to complete the mission, don't forget that the mission this time still depended on your performance and contribution. The more people there were, the lower the chances of you being able to stand out. Therefore, everyone tacitly agreed to split up so that the number of people for each mission was about the same. This was the best choice. In the end, there were only a few people left who hadn't made their choice. Leng Shiqi had thought about it for a long time. He stepped forward and stood in front of the mission to destroy the Extreme Fire Manor. There were 3 reasons why he chose the Extreme Fire Manor. First, the Extreme Fire Manor wasn't close to the Mountain Sea sect, so he didn't need to worry about the Mountain Sea sect's support when dealing with the Extreme Fire Manor. Second, the Extreme Fire Manor's location was close to the Shadow Wind Ridge. If he really couldn't do it, he could ask for help from the branch's assassins. As for the third reason, Leng Shiqi still remembered that Nine Leaf had said that the Extreme Fire Manor had a very precious treasure. A treasure that even a rank 7 great demon like Nine Leaf coveted was definitely something good. Chapter 428. After Leng Shiqi chose Extreme Fire Village's mission, the Delta Origi also stood up silently. Leng Shiqi looked around. Coincidentally, Dongfang Qi, Bu Yangqiu and Lian Yi were also here. He greeted them and stood still without saying anything. After everyone finished choosing, there were a total of 23 people who chose Extreme Fire Village's mission. Seeing that everyone had finished choosing, Lei Mian said, "Since everyone has made their choice, I'll talk about the mission's rules. First of all, as City Lord Feng said before, you can't use the power behind you. If you're discovered, you'll be disqualified from the elite group. Of course, we'll also prepare some necessary resources for you. You can go to the treasury to collect them later. The mission's time limit is 3 months. No matter what method you use, we'll only look at the results. If you can't complete the mission after 3 months, you'll all be eliminated." Hearing this, everyone's heart felt like it was being pressed down by a mountain. 3 months to destroy a second-rate force? And with just these few people? But if they couldn't complete the mission, everyone in their group would be eliminated. No wonder Lei Mian said that this was a mission that they had to succeed. Leng Shiqi crossed his arms and lowered his head slightly. He was looking for a way to destroy Extreme Fire Village within 3 months, but he didn't have any ideas at the moment. At this time, Eunuch Gao, who had been silent all this time, opened his mouth. His voice still sounded so hoarse and ear-piercing. "Disperse." As soon as Eunuch Gao opened his mouth, the entire hall was shrouded in a layer of cold air. Everyone hurriedly excused themselves. Leng Shiqi's group of 23 went to collect their respective resources first. The resources were neither too much nor too little, just enough for them to use. So they couldn't count on using these resources to recruit people. This group of people quickly fell into silence. Dong Fangqi rolled his eyes and said loudly, "Everyone, since our mission is the same and it's obvious that it's impossible to succeed with just one person's ability, we have to work together. If possible, it's best if we can elect a leader. That way we'll be able to coordinate our work and it'll be more convenient." Everyone present was a smart person. Once Dong Fangqi said this, everyone immediately guessed his intention. Dong Fangqi wanted to be the leader himself. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 10 people responded, including Bu Yangqiu. Clearly Dong Fangqi had already won them over. In fact, Dong Fangqi had also come to Leng Shiqi a few days ago, but at that time, Leng Shiqi did not see him in the name of Cultivation. At this time, Leng Shiqi secretly shook his head when he saw this scene. This Dong Fangqi was too impatient. He did not know the information and character of everyone in this group before he rashly stepped forward. Little did they know that the bird that sticks out gets shot. Sure enough, someone was not convinced. "Humph, Dong Fangqi, if you want to be the leader, just say it. Why do you have to beat around the bush? However, if you want to rise to the top and order us around, we still have to see if you have the ability to do so." The person who spoke had a dark complexion and a strange headdress on his head. At this time he was looking at Dong Fangqi with a sneer. Dong Fangqi knew that those who were able to participate in the elite meeting were not arrogant. It would not be easy for him to lead these people. He smiled and asked, "May I know your name?" "Ningyang Region's Discipline Minister, Di Chuan." "Brother Di Chuan, do you think what I just said makes sense?" "What you said makes sense. I just feel that you don't have the qualifications." Di Chuan's words did not give Dong Fangqi Lu any face. Dong Fangqi's smile gradually disappeared, but before he could say anything, Di Chuan's body shook and a huge amount of spirit energy surged out. This Di Chuan was actually at the 9th level of the spirit aperture realm. At this moment, Dong Fangqi's face suddenly became very ugly. His cultivation was not weak and was at the 8th level of the spirit aperture realm. However, in front of Di Chuan it was not enough. Dong Fangqi said in a deep voice, "Brother Di Chuan's cultivation is profound. I admire it. However, to be the leader you need not only cultivation but also ability." "Ah, what a joke." Di Chuan sneered, "We only have a total of 3 months. Are we going to compete to see whose ability is stronger? Who knows how long it will take for us to finish competing? From what I see, whoever's fist is bigger will be the boss." That's right. In the path of spirit cultivators, strength is respected. I feel that Di Chuan is more suitable to be the leader. I also support Di Chuan. After Di Chuan finished speaking, a few people stood beside him. It seemed that he came prepared. Dong Fangqi was very uncomfortable. Even though he had more people in terms of pure strength, he was indeed not as good as Di Chuan. If he could not pay Di Chuan and the others, then he would not be able to lead everyone. Right now their group was immediately divided into 3 groups. They were led by Dong Fangqi and Di Chuan respectively. As for the last 3 people, they had not chosen a team. These 3 people were Leng Shiqi, Delta Origi, and Lian Yi. They were not roped in by either side. Although Lian Yi came from the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters and her identity was definitely not ordinary, her cultivation was only in the spirit pulse realm. There was a need to make friends with such people, but there was no need to rope them in, because you might not be able to take out any benefits to rope them in. Moreover, even if you roped in a spirit pulse realm person, it would not be of much use. And Delta Origi had always kept people at a distance. It was usually difficult to talk to her, let alone rope her in. As for Leng Shiqi, although he had made friends with others, it was only a nodding acquaintance. Moreover, he often locked himself in his room to cultivate. Others did not have a chance to rope him in. Di Chuan's gaze fell on the three people. He suddenly had an idea. He cupped his hands and said, "Brother and two ladies, I have always been straightforward. As long as you are willing to support me, I dare to guarantee that no matter what danger there is in the future, I can guarantee your safety. I will do what I say because I have the strength." He even emphasized the word strength, and looked at Dong Fangqi with a provocative look. Dong Fangqi's face darkened again. If Leng Shiqi and the others all supported Di Chuan, then his advantage in numbers would be gone. Therefore he had to rope in Leng Shiqi and the others. Dong Fangqi hurriedly said to Leng Shiqi, "Brother Lu, you and I have known each other for a while. I also admire Brother Lu very much. How about..." However, before he finished speaking, Leng Shiqi waved his hand and stopped him. Leng Shiqi took a step forward and said, "Why bother? You guys don't have to quarrel. I will be the leader." Chapter 429. As soon as Leng Shiqi said this, everyone turned to look at him. Dong Fangqi looked at him in astonishment, while Di Chuan's eyes were still filled with disdain. In Di Chuan's view, Dong Fangqi was at least at the late stage of gang spirit realm. He was smooth and eloquent, so he could win over such a person and be qualified to be Di Chuan's opponent. However, Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only at the 5th level of spiritual aperture realm. A person with such a cultivation came out and said that he wanted to be the leader. He must be joking. Dong Fangqi's face also darkened. "Brother Lu, what do you mean?" "Literally," Leng Shiqi said casually. Di Chuan smiled coldly. "Everyone can talk big, but you don't deserve it." Leng Shiqi did not answer him. Instead, he stretched out his index finger and hooked it gently. Di Chuan was immediately furious. A black and red sword appeared in his hand. As soon as the sword appeared, it surged with waves of evil spirit. It was a 6th level spiritual sword. Dong Fangqi and others were all surprised. He secretly rejoiced that he did not rashly fight with Di Chuan. Otherwise he could not deal with this 6th level spiritual sword alone. Di Chuan snorted coldly. The long sword in his hand slashed out with fierce evil spirit. There was even a bloody light surging in it, which was extremely powerful. The rest of the people retreated at the same time. Some people secretly laughed at Leng Shiqi for overestimating himself and provoking Di Chuan. Now not only would he lose face but he would also be injured. However, Leng Shiqi was not afraid. The inky jade sword was unsheathed and immediately exuded an extremely sharp qi. The sword instantly bloomed with a dazzling bloody light. Leng Shiqi slashed out with his sword. The ferocious bloody light suddenly appeared. In an instant, the inky jade sword slashed out with a harsh sword sound and a strong evil spirit. The power that he suddenly broke out was also shocking. In terms of power, Leng Shiqi did not seem to be worse than Di Chuan, and the spiritual sword he used was also a 6th level spiritual sword. Everyone could not help but be surprised. When did a 6th level spiritual weapon become so worthless? Ding ding ding, the two swords collided. Although it was only one blow, it actually made several collision sounds. There were as many as 7 sounds. At the same time, the violent spiritual power burst out with the two people as the center. The expensive floor tiles on the surrounding ground instantly exploded and flew away, turning the surroundings into a mess. Di Chuan and Leng Shiqi didn't care about this at all, especially Di Chuan. The moment he exchanged blows with Leng Shiqi, he immediately felt Leng Shiqi's terrifyingly powerful strength. He was at the 9th level of gang spirit realm, but he couldn't defeat Leng Shiqi in terms of pure strength. What shocked him even more was that Leng Shiqi's attack seemed to be a single strike, but it was actually 7 strikes. It was not that the speed of the swords was very fast. If it was 7 swords in a moment, Di Chuan could easily do it. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi had actually combined the 7 swords into one, and only unleashed it at the moment of the exchange. Like a tidal wave, one sword strike after another shook Di Chuan to the point that the web between his thumb and forefinger split open. At that moment, Di Chuan could not even hold the hilt of his sword firmly. Di Chuan was defeated by this move. In fact, this move was Leng Shiqi's biggest gain during this period. He combined the 17 swords of Mount Song with the 7 swords of bloody killing that Wuxia gave him. When the sword was unleashed, it was actually 7 swords stacked together. And he could also change the sword style and sword intent at will, which was changeable and had great power. However, Leng Shiqi did not intend to end the battle so easily. With a shake of his sword, dozens of tri-extinction sword chi shot out. Di Chuan looked at the oncoming sword chi and was shocked. He made a gesture with his left hand and twisted devil chi flashed around him. The devil chi seemed to be able to twist everything, and the strange power strangled most of the sword chi. At the same time, Di Chuan moved his body and dodged some of them, but in the end dozens of sword chi still entered his body. The sword chi entered his body, burned his meridians, froze his blood flow and sealed his meridians. Di Chuan let out a muffled groan. His face was green and red, and he pursed his lips to prevent the blood in his mouth from spitting out. There was suddenly silence in the field. Anyone could see that Di Chuan was definitely at a disadvantage, but this result completely subverted everyone's expectations. Di Chuan was at the 9th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. With a 6th level spiritual sword, he could even fight with masters of the Gang Spirit Realm. But now he was defeated by Leng Shiqi in 2 moves. Everyone was familiar with fighting above their level, because those who could participate in the elite meeting were all outstanding people in the same level. They could also fight above 1 or 2 levels. But Leng Shiqi crossed 4 levels in a row and defeated Di Chuan easily. Then how strong was his true strength? Dongfang Qi looked at Leng Shiqi with a bit of shock in his eyes. At this moment he was even more glad that he didn't fight with Leng Shiqi. Otherwise he might not even be able to take one move. Lian Ye's beautiful eyes were also full of splendor, because she also saw a trace of familiarity from Leng Shiqi's 2 moves just now. If she felt a bit of déjà vu towards Leng Shiqi, then it could be said that she had met him once somewhere. But if the spiritual technique also had a familiar feeling, then it was worth thinking about. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi had now integrated the pulse-punching sword chi and the 17 sword techniques of Mount Song into other spiritual techniques. Otherwise, Lian Yi might have noticed something. As for Delta Origi, she just smiled quietly. She had long been accustomed to Leng Shiqi's extraordinary combat power. Actually, the moment Leng Shiqi stepped out, she already knew the outcome. But she still sighed in her heart. While she was trying her best to catch up to Leng Shiqi, she realized that she was getting further and further away from Leng Shiqi. Although Delta Origi's cultivation was only at the 1st level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, she was confident that she was comparable to a 4th level Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator. But if she wanted to defeat a 4th level Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator in 1 or 2 moves, she couldn't do it. Leng Shiqi put away his sword and said, "Brother D just said that strength is respected. Who else wants to come and experience it?" He looked around. His gaze didn't have a trace of aggression, but everyone silently didn't dare to look at him. Di Chuan also had a gloomy expression and didn't say a word. Leng Shiqi then turned to Dongfang Qi and said, "Brother Dongfang said that strength is more important. I'm not talented, but as the great supervisor, my strength should be acceptable, right?" Everyone present, other than Dongfang Qi and Buyang Qiu, were shocked. He was the great supervisor? The Spirit Aperture Realm great supervisor? In terms of strength, Leng Shiqi was the best. In terms of ability, there was no need to talk about it. To be able to become the great supervisor at the Spirit Aperture Realm, how could his ability be weak? Everyone stopped talking. At this moment, they had already tacitly accepted Leng Shiqi as their leader. Chapter 430. Although Leng Shiqi was now everyone's leader, there weren't many who truly believed in him. Especially those who were roped in by Dongfang Qi and Di Chuan. They definitely wouldn't listen to Leng Shiqi in secret. However, Leng Shiqi didn't care about this. The reason why he chose to fight for this position was to make it easier for him to do things. He couldn't be bothered to fight for power in this small group. At this moment, Delta Origi said leisurely, "Brother Lu's strength is truly shocking. But what do you plan to do next?" Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment. "Our target is Extreme Fire Manor. Before doing anything, we need to gather some information." Delta Origi revealed a thoughtful expression. "If we were to talk about the sects in Donglin County, it would be Donglin County's Dark Thunder Guards. Unfortunately, they aren't in our group." Leng Shiqi shook his head. "If we find Donglin County's Dark Thunder Guards, even if they're willing to give us information, we can't take it. This is equivalent to breaking the rules. Don't forget, there's another force that has gathered a large amount of information on spirit cultivator sections. They even gathered information on the entire falling star continent. Hearing this, some people reacted. Dongfang Qi clapped his hands. Brother Lu is talking about Wind Whisper Tower. That's right. Wind Whisper Tower was a very special force that was ranked in the world sect rankings. The reason why Wind Whisper Tower was special was because those that could be ranked in the world sect rankings were all extremely powerful forces. They were all called top forces or extraordinary forces. However, there weren't many experts in Wind Whisper Tower. They didn't even have a Sky Origin Realm expert. However, such a force could enter the world sect rankings and be ranked as one of the 9 great sections. It was precisely because Wind Whisper Tower had an unimaginably huge information network. Speaking of information, the Dark Thunder Guards and Blood Robe Pavilion in the Thunderblaze dynasty actually had an extremely tight information network. However, the Dark Thunder Guards' information was mainly focused on spirit cultivator sects and imperial officials, while the Blood Robe Pavilion focused more on assassination targets. Moreover, the coverage of these two forces' information network was basically limited to the Thunderblaze dynasty. As for Wind Whisper Tower, they had collected all kinds of information from the entire Starfall continent. As long as something happened in a certain place, there was almost nothing that Wind Whisper Tower did not know. Wind Whisper Tower's ability to gather information was publicly acknowledged to be the best in the Starfall continent. They were able to enter the World Sect ranking because the World Sect ranking was created by them. Wind Whisper's Tower also had branches all over the continent, and they specialized in selling and collecting information. There was also a branch of Whistling Tower in Donglin County, and it was set up in Donglin City. There's no time to lose. Let's split into 2 groups. You guys pack your things first and gather at the western gate. I'll go to Wind Whisper Tower to buy information and gather at the city gate. Lung Shiqi said. He didn't sound like he was giving an order, but a few people in the crowd frowned. Di Chuan in particular, let out a light snort before turning around and walking away. Lung Shiqi did not care about him. He gave Delta Orgi a look, asking her to help keep an eye on Di Chuan and Dongfang Qi while he prepared to go to Wind Whisper Tower. However, at this time, the people from the City Lord's mansion hurried over. One of them, who was dressed like a butler, said with a smile, "I wonder which lord is generous enough to pay for these floor tiles to be repaired." Di Chuan's figure, which had not gone far, suddenly paused. At this time, 2 people were sitting in a private room of Wind Whisper Tower in Donglin City. Lung Shiqi was one of them. As for the other person, he was a thin middle-aged man in shabby clothes. He was the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards in Donglin County, Wu Diao. Wu Diao had the cultivation of the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm. He was close to the complete realm of the Spirit Aperture Realm, which was 1 level higher than Di Chuan. He was the leader of the group that accepted the mission to destroy the Salt Clan. He was very well respected by the others with his high cultivation and deep understanding of Donglin County. Lung Shiqi could think of buying information from Wind Whisper Tower, so could Wu Diao. So they met here unexpectedly. In fact, it was not only them. After them, there was another young man with an imposing appearance. He was dressed in luxurious clothes and had a golden crown on his head. When he walked in and saw Lung Shiqi and Wu Diao, he immediately cupped his hands and smiled. "Zhuge Puha greets the 2 of you. You 2 came quite early." Zhuge Puha, the commissioner of the Discipline Commission of Shantai County, was said to have broken through to the Spirit Pulse realm in his early 20s. Now he was only in his 30s and was already at the 9th level of the Spirit Aperture realm. He was known as one of the most dazzling geniuses in Shantai County. He was the leader of the elite group that destroyed the Great Righteousness sect. Zhuge Puha had guessed who the leaders of the other 2 groups would be. He guessed Wu Diao, but Lung Shiqi's appearance here was completely out of his expectations. Originally, Zhuge Puha thought it would be Di Chuan. The 3 of them greeted each other, and an old man with a long beard walked in with a servant. This person was the shopkeeper of Wind Whisper Tower in Donglin City, Shopkeeper Jing. After Lung Shiqi and Wu Diao came here to explain their intentions, he went to prepare the information. He must have brought it back by now. What surprised Lung Shiqi was that he saw 3 jade slips on the wooden tray that the servant was carrying. Shopkeeper Jing took the wooden tray and said, "I already know why the 3 of you are here. These 3 pieces of information are what you want, but..." He did not finish his sentence, but Lung Shiqi and the others understood what he meant. Zhuge Puha said with a smile, "I cannot take Wind Whisper Tower's things for free. Please give me a price." Shopkeeper Jing raised a finger and said 4 words, 10,000 spirit stones. Zhuge Puha's smile immediately froze, and Wu Diao frowned deeply. 10,000 spirit stones, this was the entire fortune of an ordinary spirit aperture realm cultivator. It was not that they could not afford it, but after spending 10,000 spirit stones, they could not make ends meet. They really did not expect the information to be so expensive. It was a bit painful to pay for it, but they could not let the others share it equally. That would be too stingy, and how could they convince the others? As for Leng Shiqi, he was calmer. Although he was surprised by the high price of the information, since Wind Whisper Tower paid such a price, it must be worth it. Moreover, Wind Whisper Tower should know their identities, so they would not dare to ask for too much. Of course, the most important thing was that Leng Shiqi brought more than 30,000 spirit stones with him before coming to Donglin County. Therefore he could be considered rich and overbearing. He was the first to nod and say, "Deal." Leng Shiqi took out 10,000 spirit stones without hesitation. Zhuge Puha and Wu Diao could only grit their teeth and buy the information. Chapter 431. Leng Shiqi, Wu Diao, and Zhuge Puha walked in different directions after leaving Wind Whispering Tower. Leng Shiqi didn't go straight to the west gate. Instead, he turned into a small alley and sank into the ground to take out the jade slip he just bought. What was recorded inside was the information regarding the Extreme Fire Manor. His eyes flashed with astonishment as he scanned the jade slip with his mental power. The words on the jade slip were densely packed. It actually recorded everything that had happened since the establishment of the Extreme Fire Manor until now. This was simply the chronicles of Extreme Fire Manor. Perhaps even Extreme Fire Manor didn't have such detailed records. Wind Whispering Tower's information gathering ability was truly the best in the world. Leng Shiqi calmed down and carefully read the information, trying to find an opportunity. The first half of the information didn't have any practical value, and it was all from 100 years ago. However, there was one thing that caught Leng Shiqi's attention. According to the information, Extreme Fire Manor was built on top of an extinct volcano. Although this volcano was extinct, it still contained a large amount of earth fire energy. The disciples of Extreme Fire Manor could use the earth fire energy to cultivate, and it was truly half the work. However, the earth fire energy was abnormally violent and couldn't be cultivated for long periods of time. As a result, the cultivation speed of the disciples was limited. Therefore, Extreme Fire Manor thought of a way to suppress the violence of the earth fire energy by consuming the ice water from the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond. However, the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond wasn't unique to Extreme Fire Manor. It was located between Extreme Fire Manor and Bipolar Mountain Manor. Bipolar Mountain Manor was a second-rate faction, and it wasn't any weaker than Extreme Fire Manor. There were people from Bipolar Mountain Manor among the people who chased after Leng Shiqi in the illusory spirit realm. Bipolar Mountain Manor cultivated the ice and fire dual cultivation method, and they also needed the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond. Therefore, there were many conflicts between these two forces regarding the Extreme Cold Spirit Pool. However, they did not completely shed all pretense of cordiality and fight to the death. It was not that they didn't have such thoughts, but every time this happened, the Discipline Commission of Donglin County would come out to mediate for the sake of stability. Although Eastwood's Discipline Commission's presence was weak, it was still not something a second-rate sect could afford to offend. Thus, gradually the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Village began to discuss having their young disciples compete every 3 years. The winner of 2 out of 3 matches would obtain the right to use the Extreme Frost Spirit Pool for 3 years. This rule had been maintained for several decades now. Both sides had their share of wins and losses. However, in the past few years the Extreme Fire Manor had won both competitions. Coincidentally, a month later was the time for the two sides to compete again. Leng Shiqi's mind spun, and a plan faintly emerged in his mind. After that, he went to the West City Gate to meet up with everyone. Dongfang Qi immediately asked him about the information. Leng Shiqi vaguely said, "Although the Wind Listening Tower's information is detailed, we still need to rush to the vicinity of the Extreme Fire Manor to obtain some of the latest information before looking for an opportunity to make our move." He only gave a rough explanation and didn't mention the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond in detail. Dongfang Qi and Di Chuan were both well aware of this, but Leng Shiqi was the leader on the surface after all. They couldn't question him directly and could only rush to the Extreme Fire Manor together. Saining City was a city located 100 miles away from the Extreme Fire Manor. Disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Village would often appear here. After Leng Shiqi and the rest arrived, they spread out to gather information about the Extreme Fire Manor. Because the competition for the right to use the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond was imminent, many spirit cultivators treated this as a topic of conversation after meals. This allowed them to gather quite a bit of information. Very quickly, they felt that this might be a good opportunity for them to make their move. Bu Yangqiu suggested, "The Extreme Cold Spirit Pond is very important to the Extreme Fire Manor. Although the competition is said to be a competition between low-level disciples, some experts of the Extreme Fire Manor will definitely go. Why don't we take this opportunity to sneak into the Extreme Fire Manor and get rid of the experts of the 4 realms of celestial being first?" "No way." Di Chuan immediately disagreed. "Let's not talk about whether we can sneak into the Extreme Fire Manor smoothly with so many people. Besides, there are 3 experts of the Gang Spirit realm in the Extreme Fire Manor. If we are accidentally detected by them, how many of us are confident to leave safely?" Dong Fangqi also felt that Bu Yangqiu's idea was a bit presumptuous. He said, "Why don't we intercept those who come to participate in the competition halfway and then shift the blame to the Bipolar Mountain Village? Let them fight because of this and then we can reap the benefits." His idea immediately gained the support of more than half of the people, but Leng Shiqi shook his head. A trace of dissatisfaction flashed across Dong Fangqi's eyes. "What's your opinion, Brother Lu?" Leng Shiqi glanced at Dong Fangqi. Dong Fangqi's little movement didn't escape Leng Shiqi's observation. How can it be so easy to shift the blame? What reason and motive does the Bipolar Mountain Village have to kill those people of the Extreme Fire Manor? Even though the Bipolar Mountain Village has lost twice in a row, they clearly know that they are evenly matched with the Extreme Fire Manor. It's impossible for them to rashly kill the disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor. This will only make the 2 sides fall out completely, which will do no good to anyone. And once we fail, the Extreme Fire Manor will be on high alert, and it will be very difficult for us to take action again. This time, Di Chuan suddenly stood on Leng Shiqi's side. "Brother Lu is right. We only have one chance to take action. We must succeed in one stroke." Dong Fangqi's idea was rejected by Leng Shiqi and Di Chuan one after another, which made him a bit embarrassed. However, Leng Shiqi changed the topic, saying, "Of course, Brother Dongfang's idea is right. Let the Bipolar Mountain Village and the Extreme Fire Manor fight." He gave Dong Fangqi a way out. Delta Origi stood out at this moment and said, "Brother Lu should already have a plan in mind. Why don't you tell us?" Leng Shiqi immediately raised 3 fingers and said, "The key to this matter lies in 3 people. They are Zhu Lin, Wan Xiaoyuan and Ji Yilan." Everyone had been inquiring about the Extreme Fire Manor today, so they knew that Zhu Lin was the only son of the Extreme Fire Manor's master. He was also the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation. He was already at the 9th level of the Spirit Transformation Realm at the age of 20, and he had also learned the Extreme Fire Absolute Sword from the Extreme Fire Manor. He was quite famous within a radius of several hundred kilometers. As for Wan Xiaoyuan and Ji Yilan, they didn't know who they were. They also didn't understand why Leng Shiqi would mention these 2 unfamiliar names. At this moment, Lian Yi muttered, Ji Yilan from the Shining City's Ji family? I heard that Zhu Lin seems to be very fond of this Ji Yilan. Could it be that you want to take action from this?" Leng Shiqi nodded and said, "That's right, but it's not just Zhu Lin who likes Ji Yilan. The genius disciple of the Bipolar Mountain Village, Wan Xiaoyuan, is also the same." Chapter 432. On this day, the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Village would compete for the right to use the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond again. They chose the White Long Valley between the 2 sides. Some disciples of the 2 sects gathered here, and some spirit cultivators who were watching the fun also came over. In the center of the White Long Valley, the people of the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Village had already arrived. However, the Spirit Astral Realm experts from both sides didn't come, only sending a few Spirit Aperture Realm elders to watch. Although the impact of this competition was great, it was still a competition between the younger generation. The young disciples of these second-rate sects were basically only at the Spirit Transformation Realm. This level of competition wasn't a life-and-death battle. It was enough to have a few Spirit Aperture Realm experts. The disciples of both sides were looking at each other with hatred. The 2 sects were too close, and they both needed the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond. In the past few decades, there had been many conflicts, and the accumulated hatred between the 2 sides was already very deep. However, the disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor were more complacent. while the people of the Bipolar Mountain Village were more resentful. The main reason was that the Bipolar Mountain Village had already lost twice in a row in the competition for the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond. However, they were still very confident this time. The Bipolar Mountain Village had also produced an extraordinary genius in the past 2 years, and that was Wan Xiaoyuan. In fact, this person had already reached the peak of the spirit transformation realm half a year ago. In terms of talent, he was definitely not weaker than the young master of the Extreme Fire Manor, Zhu Lin. However, Wan Xiaoyuan had always been more low-key, so his reputation wasn't as resounding as Wan Xiaoyuan. Therefore, the disciples of the Bipolar Mountain Village placed their hopes on Wan Xiaoyuan, hoping that he could reclaim the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond and wash away their shame. The spirit cultivators below were also discussing spiritedly. There were even people who didn't mind watching the fun and started gambling. Take a guess who will win this time? I heard that the Extreme Fire Manor's Zhu Lin is not only at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm, but also cultivates the Extreme Fire Sword technique. It seems that the Extreme Fire Manor will definitely win this time. Someone retorted, that's not necessarily true. Perhaps you don't know that the Bipolar Mountain Village's Wan Xiaoyuan is also at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. He is even close to the limit of the spirit transformation realm, so it's not certain who will win. That's right. The Bipolar Stronghold's Frost Ice Silk Hands is also very strong. Especially when it's able to use softness to overcome hardness, it has a great advantage among those of the same level. Some people were discussing the strength of both sides, while others were gossiping in a low voice. Have you guys heard that the young master of the Extreme Fire Manor, Zhu Lin, and the genius disciple of the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold, Wan Xiaoyuan, are both in love with the eldest daughter of the Ji family, Jilan? I've also heard that the two of them have clashed several times in secret. It is said that this time the two of them are not only fighting for the Extreme Frost Spirit Pool, but also for the Ji family's eldest Mississippi, Tiske. This Ji clan really gave birth to a good daughter. That Ji clan was originally a small clan in Sharning City that didn't have much of a reputation. There were only a few Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators in the clan. But she just had to give birth to a daughter that made two geniuses infatuated with her. In the future, no matter who this Jilan follows, the Ji family will definitely soar to the skies. These spirit cultivators liked to gossip when they had nothing better to do. Hearing this, everyone's body protection immediately shifted to the Ji family's eldest Mississippi. Coincidentally, at this time, a group of 10 people separated from the crowd and walked closer to the stage. It was the Ji family. Immediately someone muttered, "The Ji family really came. Look, that's the Ji family's eldest Miss Jilan." Everyone's gaze quickly turned over and saw a young girl around 18 or 19 years old gracefully walking over. She looked a little charming, very cute and enchanting. Although she could not be considered a peerless beauty, she was still a first-class beauty. She is indeed a beauty. No wonder she could attract the attention of two young elites and even cause them to fight over her. In the crowd, there was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man who stood expressionlessly. He was Leng Shiqi after his disguise. Leng Shiqi also stared at Jilan. What he cared about was not Jilan's appearance, because he had already secretly looked for her last night. Jilan's cultivation was not high, only at the pure spirit realm. After Leng Shiqi infiltrated the Ji family, he immediately used an illusion to control her and gave her a few instructions. It could be said that whether his plan could proceed smoothly or not depended on Jilan's performance today. He came today to see if the outcome would be as he expected. Leng Shiqi was not worried that Jilan would go against his wishes, because the lives of everyone in the Ji family were also tied to Jilan. Seeing Jilan appear, a simple-looking youth from the twin Extreme Mountain Village immediately waved at her in high spirits. Jilan also quietly smiled at him, causing the youth to smile even more excitedly. This youth was Wan Xiaoyuan. At the same time, on the Extreme Volcano Village's side, a youth wearing a fiery red robe and holding a sword revealed a disdainful smile. He was the young village lord Zhu Lin. A person beside Zhu Lin sneered and said, "Those idiots from the Bipolar Stronghold thought that they had the opportunity to obtain the Extreme Frost Spirit Pool. Little did they know that young Manor Lord had already opened up the Spirit Sea and reached the half-step Spirit Pulse realm. This time, whether it is the Cold Spirit Pond or the young Miss of the Ji family, they are all yours." That Wan Xiaoyuan even dared to make a move against me a while ago. If it wasn't for Father not allowing me to reveal my true strength, I would have already taught him a lesson. But this is also good. Today I will properly teach him how to behave in front of everyone. I will also let him know who is qualified to obtain Elon, and who is the strongest genius in Saining City. The disciples of the extreme volcano village were all praising Zhu Lin. Not long after, the Spirit Aperture Realm experts from both sides went on stage to announce the official start of the competition. There were a total of 3 rounds and the winner would win 2 out of 3 rounds. In the first and second rounds, both sides won 1 round each. Soon it was time for the most crucial third round. This time it was Zhu Lin and Wan Xiaoyuan who went on stage. They were also the people who were entrusted with the greatest hope. The two of them glared at each other as soon as they went on stage. It was obvious that they had accumulated grievances for a long time. They didn't waste any time and directly started to fight. Wan Xiaoyuan waved his hands and used one of the ultimate techniques of the twin extreme mountain village, the frost ice silk hands. A large amount of spirit energy surged out like silk. Once entangled, it would become tighter and tighter. Moreover, there were also traces of cold air. It was a type of spirit technique that combined killing and trapping into one. However, Zhu Lin sneered. He unsheathed his long sword, and as the scarlet-red sword light scattered, a fiery aura immediately surrounded it. The violent sword chi slashed out and instantly shattered the spirit energy of Wan Xiaoyuan's frost ice silk hands, forcing him to retreat. Wan Xiaoyuan and everyone else were shocked. Half-step spirit pulse realm. Chapter 433. After Zhu Lin displayed his cultivation, no matter if it was the people from the twin extreme village or the surrounding cultivators, they were all shocked. The young master of the extreme fire village had been hiding his strength all along. This way the result was already decided. Zhu Lin and Wan Xiaoyuan's spirit techniques were on par, but Zhu Lin's cultivation was higher than Wan Xiaoyuan's. This time the twin extreme village was bound to lose. Everyone couldn't help but look at the twin extreme village with sympathy. If they lost again, they would have lost 3 times in a row. In other words, the extreme fire village had occupied the extreme cold spirit pool for nearly 10 years. 10 years was enough for them to nurture a new generation of young disciples. If this continued, the twin extreme village would probably be suppressed by the extreme fire village in the future. The leading Spirit Aperture Realm elder of the extreme fire village also revealed a smile. A year ago, 9 Leaves swallowed a large amount of resources from their collection, causing the sect to be in a serious deficit. Some people had already started to have their own thoughts. After today's battle, not only could they continue to use the extreme cold spirit pool for 3 years after winning, they could also stabilize the people's hearts. No matter how one looked at it, it was a joyous occasion. On the stage, Zhu Lin sneered, "Wan Xiaoyuan, don't forget what you said a few days ago. If you lose, stay away from Elon. She will be your sister-in-law in the future." Wan Xiaoyuan's temperament was originally rather simple. Furthermore, he devoted himself to cultivation all year round, so his shrewdness was rather shallow. Being ridiculed by Zhu Lin, he was so angry that his face turned red. He said angrily, "So what if your half-step spirit pulse realm? If you have the ability, let's have a life and death battle today." Ah. Zhu Lin laughed maniacally, "With just you? If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Wan Xiaoyuan took the initiative to attack. The frost ice silk hand shook out threads of icy chi. The power was soft and abnormally tough, penetrating the body with ice. Seeing this, Zhu Lin was happy because although this move looked powerful in reality, Wan Xiaoyuan was already in a mess. His spirit technique was full of flaws. He slashed out with his spirit sword and blazing sword chi surged out. When he attacked, he already had a trace of the demeanor of a spirit pulse realm expert. Wan Xiaoyuan was completely suppressed by Zhu Lin in the blink of an eye, and it didn't take long for him to show signs of defeat. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that Wan Xiaoyuan was bound to lose. The bipolar mountain stronghold was also bound to lose. However, an obscure killing intent flashed through Zhu Lin's eyes. The bipolar mountain manor had been at odds with their extreme fire manor for a very long time now. Moreover, not only did Wan Xiaoyuan compete with him for the cold pond, but he also competed with him for the woman. Murderous intent had already appeared in his heart. Although in the past, both sides would not kill each other in the arena battles, which would definitely become a situation where they would fight to the death, Wan Xiaoyuan had personally said that it would be a life-and-death battle between them. Since that was the case, then don't blame him for being cruel. When Wan Xiaoyuan's strength was exhausted, Zhu Lin's sword form suddenly changed, turning to stab at Wan Xiaoyuan's chi. This time the people of the bipolar village were really frightened. If this sword really pierced through, then Wan Xiaoyuan's qi would be destroyed and he would become a cripple. Their Bipolar Mountain Manor's most talented disciple of this generation would fall, and the Bipolar Mountain Manor would fall into a predicament of lacking in manpower for the next few years. The Bipolar Mountain Manor's Spirit Aperture Realm Elder coldly snorted. He pointed from afar, and a cold energy suddenly shot out, instantly shattering Zhu Lin's longsword. He said coldly, "Zhu Lin, what is the meaning of this?" At this moment, the Extreme Fire Manor's Elder also stood out. What is the meaning of this? Previously, these two had already agreed to a life-and-death battle. Since it's a life-and-death battle, naturally life and death are up to fate. You rashly intervened and broke the rules. You. At this moment, Wan Xiaoyuan seemed to have lost all his strength as he said dejectedly, "Elderly, there's no need to say any more. I've lost. I've lost face for this sect." Hearing this, Zhu Lin laughed. "Ah, you let me win." The Extreme Fire Manor's Elder said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "Elderly, I'm sorry. Our Extreme Fire Manor will have to use this Extreme Cold Spirit Pond for another 3 years." Elderly and all the Bipolar Mountain Manor's disciples had gloomy expressions. Not only did they lose the Extreme Cold Spirit Pond, but they had lost 3 times in a row. The Bipolar Mountain Manor's face was completely lost. Wan Xiaoyuan looked at Zhu Lin's arrogant face and had an impulse in his heart. He said, "So what if you won? You don't know that Elan and I have already pledged our lives to each other. It's impossible for her to be with you." "What did you say? I don't believe it." Zhu Lin's expression changed. He simply walked to Elan's side and asked, "Elan, he's lying, right?" Wan Xiaoyuan didn't say anything but looked at Elan affectionately. Elan's face blossomed into a brilliant smile and said, "Why would I pledge my life to Wan Xiaoyuan? In my heart, Brother Zhu is the true genius. He's the one I can entrust my life to." Hearing this, Zhu Lin smiled complacently, while Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes were suddenly bloodshot, full of disbelief and despair. Unexpectedly, Elan didn't even look at him. Instead, she walked to Zhu Lin's side and made her position clear. Wan Xiaoyuan opened his mouth wide as if he wanted to say something. Zhu Lin, however, burst into laughter. He held Elan in his arms in front of everyone and sneered, "Did you hear that? Elan said that I'm the one who's destined for her. And you're just a defeated opponent. You'd better get lost in the future and don't wander around in front of Elan. Soon she'll be my wife." Ah. Elan was held in Zhu Lin's arms. There was a hint of struggle in the depths of her eyes, but she still gave up. Because the person who broke into her room a few nights ago was too terrifying. She had to do things according to that person's request. Otherwise, hundreds of people in the Ji family would die. Seeing this scene, Wan Xiaoyuan was furious. He quickly rushed over and shouted, "Bastard! Let go of Elan." The crowd immediately opened up a path for him and looked at him with a look of watching a good show. Today's matter was really explosive. It was enough for them to gossip for a long time. Elderly of the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold immediately reached out and grabbed him back, earnestly persuading him, "Xiaoyuan, a real man doesn't have to worry about not having a wife. When we go back, I'll ask the sect master to arrange a good marriage for you. It's definitely better than Elan." Wan Xiaoyuan didn't listen to a single word of these words. He stared at the complacent Zhu Lin, pushed Elderly away and ran away. Elderly shook his head and didn't chase after him. Today's matter was really a big blow to Wan Xiaoyuan. It was good to let him calm down. As for the others, they also chatted with each other and left. The competition ended hastily. The corner of Leng Shiqi's mouth rose slightly. His plan could finally be carried out smoothly. Chapter 434. In a dense forest in the depths of White Long Valley, Wan Xiaoyuan's heart was filled with resentment and shame. Not only was he defeated by the person he hated the most in the arena, but his favorite woman was also snatched away. Zhu Lin even hugged Elan in public. This kind of blow made Wan Xiaoyuan, who had always been ignorant of worldly affairs, go crazy. What made him feel even more humiliated was that Elan had clearly promised him a few nights ago that she would be with him, but she actually changed her mind today. Wan Xiaoyuan didn't hate Elan. He only felt that Zhu Lin must have forced Elan behind her back. It must be. He hated it so much. He hated Zhu Lin for going too far, and hated his own incompetence even more. Ah. Wan Xiaoyuan roared like a madman, wildly pounding the trees and boulders around him with his fists. He didn't use any spiritual power, only the strength of his physical body. However, he didn't cultivate any body refining techniques, so it didn't take long for his hands to be badly mangled. However, he didn't seem to notice it and continued to vent there, as if these trees were Zhu Lin. What a joke. You can't beat others, so you came here to compete with Shermu. You're really useless. At this time, a disdainful voice with a hint of ridicule sounded. Who? Wan Xiaoyuan turned around abruptly and saw a middle-aged man in gray with an ordinary face standing there. He had never seen this person before. This person was naturally Leng Shiqi. He said indifferently, "You don't need to know who I am. I just want to ask you, do you hate Zhu Lin?" "Of course I do." Wan Xiaoyuan said hatefully. "Since you hate him so much, you need to cultivate diligently. One day you will be stronger than him and defeat him with your own strength. Take back the glory that should belong to you and take back the woman that should belong to you. But what you're doing now, what does it mean to be a coward?" Leng Shiqi's tone was very flat, but there seemed to be some kind of strange rhythm in his words. Leng Shiqi used illusion techniques more naturally and freely. In his every gaze and every word, there was a trace of illusion technique mixed in. He wanted to subtly magnify the hatred in Wan Xiaoyuan's heart. Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes turned red from Leng Shiqi's words. His nails dug deep into his palms and even pierced his skin, causing blood to flow out. He didn't say a word and his face revealed a look of struggle. In the end he was dejected and disheartened. The other party was right. He was indeed a coward. He didn't have the confidence to defeat Zhu Lin, and he might not have a chance in the future. Zhu Lin had already refined his spirit sea before him. Perhaps, in a few years' time, Zhu Lin would be able to break through the spiritual pulse realm and become an expert of the 4 levels of the sky-human realm. On the other hand, he, Wan Xiaoyuan, had yet to even condense his spiritual sea. He would only be pulled further and further apart. What could he use to defeat Zhu Lin? Seeing him like this, Leng Shiqi said, "Am I right? But I still have the same question. Do you want revenge?" "Of course I do. I even dream about it," Wan Xiaoyuan roared. "But what's the use of dreaming about it? My cultivation is not as good as his, I can't defeat him." "Who said that you can't defeat him just because your cultivation is not as good as his?" Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "There are many battles in this world where the weak wins against the strong. As long as you have a powerful spiritual technique, you can completely defeat Zhu Lin. Such a spiritual technique has to be at least level 5 or above. The sect has it, but the elders definitely won't give it to me," Wan Xiaoyuan said dejectedly. Leng Shiqi's eyes locked onto Wan Xiaoyuan's and said, "If you really want to learn, I can teach you." As soon as he said this, Wan Xiaoyuan's body immediately paused, and he looked at Leng Shiqi warily. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Moreover, spiritual techniques were like cultivation techniques. They were all secrets of the sect and ordinary people couldn't even find them. Now, this stranger in front of him actually wanted to teach him a powerful spiritual technique? No matter how simple Wan Xiaoyuan was, he wasn't stupid. He asked warily, "Who exactly are you? What's your purpose in doing this?" "I'm just a passerby. When I saw you being humiliated like this, I just wanted to help you." At this point, Leng Shiqi's eyes faintly flashed with a 5-colored light. "You don't have to be so nervous. I'm everywhere and have no fixed residence. I'm only going to teach you a spiritual technique. I'm not asking you to be my disciple, nor do I need you to pay anything. Just take it that I want to form a good relationship with you." I'll still say the same thing. "Do you want to take revenge and wash away your humiliation?" The 5-colored light in Leng Shiqi's eyes became even brighter. However, Wan Xiaoyuan seemed to be unaware of this. His expression became a little stiff. However, when he heard that he would avenge his humiliation, his eyes suddenly erupted with shocking hatred. Wan Xiaoyuan nodded deeply. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi laughed inwardly. Under the bewitchment of the illusion, Wan Xiaoyuan had finally taken the bait. Leng Shiqi crossed his arms and said, "The spiritual technique I'm going to teach you is actually somewhat related to your bipolar mountain village. Watch carefully." With that, Leng Shiqi's aura condensed and he displayed the power of the peak of the spirit transformation realm. Then he moved both of his hands and suddenly hundreds and thousands of threads of spiritual power with cold aura surged out. These threads of cold aura changed endlessly. Sometimes they were as indestructible as sharp spears and sometimes they were as tough as willow branches. However, no matter what they looked like, the terrifying cold power contained within them froze all the surrounding trees and stones into ice. With a wave of his hand, Leng Shiqi turned the area within 100 feet into a cold hell. Wan Xiaoyuan was dumbfounded. Was this the destructive power of a spirit transformation realm cultivator? He could also see that the spiritual technique Leng Shiqi used was indeed similar to the extreme cold ice silk hands he cultivated. In front of this spiritual technique, the extreme cold ice silk hands was simply child's play. If he learned this spiritual technique, even if Zhu Lin was a half-step spirit vein realm cultivator, he was confident he could easily defeat him. After recovering from his shock, Wan Xiaoyuan immediately revealed a look of ecstasy. He clasped his hands and said, "Senior, are you really going to teach me this spiritual technique?" Leng Shiqi continued to maintain the illusion and his voice was filled with temptation. "Yes, I might as well tell you that my ancestor and your bipolar mountain village's ancestor have a lot of connections. My cold underworld thousand silk hands was born from the extreme cold ice silk hands, so you can't be considered stealing it. Moreover, you have the foundation of the extreme cold ice silk hands, so you will learn it very quickly." When Wan Xiaoyuan heard this, he suddenly realized that this senior was related to the sect. The last trace of vigilance in his heart finally dropped. "However, you must not tell anyone else about me teaching you this spiritual technique, not even your elders. Can you do it?" Wan Xiaoyuan immediately said, "Please rest assured, senior, I won't tell anyone." Leng Shiqi waved his hand and said, "Very good, I'll teach you the spiritual technique first. Go back and comprehend it. In the future you can come here to find me every 2 days. Chapter 435. Wan Xiaoyuan nodded and was about to leave, but before he left, he suddenly remembered something. He turned around and asked, "By the way, senior, I still don't know your name." "A name is just a code name. It's fate that allowed me to teach you the cold underworld thousand thread hands. After this, I'm going to travel the world. You can just call me senior," Leng Shiqi said with a profound expression. Wan Xiaoyuan suddenly felt some admiration for Leng Shiqi. Thinking about how he was still wary of Leng Shiqi, he felt a little embarrassed. After a few simple laughs, he turned around and left. Leng Shiqi looked at Wan Xiaoyuan's departing figure and revealed a meaningful smile. He muttered, "Dongfang Qi and Delta Origi should be making their move now." In fact, before the competition between the extreme volcano village and the bipolar village, he had already divided this group of people into 3 groups. Dongfang Qi and Di Chuan each led about 10 people and hid near the 2 sections. As long as the competition ended and the result was what Leng Shiqi expected, they would spread the news of this battle. They would also praise the extreme volcano village and suppress the bipolar village, causing the conflict between the 2 sides to intensify. At this moment, in a small town near the extreme volcano village, Bu Yangqiu stood next to Dongfang Qi and said, "Brother Dongfang, will you really listen to Lu Xingji's arrangements?" Dongfang Qi's eyes flashed with a complicated expression. He said in a deep voice, "Bu Yangqiu, put away your thoughts. Although Lu Xingji came out of nowhere and took my position as the leader, his status and strength are far above us. I'm convinced. Especially since he was able to find an almost undetectable flaw in the information to expose the relationship between the extreme volcano village and the bipolar village. And it's very likely that he will succeed. I don't want to offend someone like him. Don't forget that our mission isn't just to destroy the extreme volcano village. We have to show our value in the process. If you want to pretend to be obedient, you'll still be eliminated even if we destroy the extreme volcano village." Bu Yangqiu was a little embarrassed by Dongfang Qi's words. However, at this time another person hurriedly walked over. He didn't say anything and only gave a look. Dongfang Qi and Bu Yangqiu knew that Leng Shiqi's plan had succeeded. Follow the plan. On the other side, near the bipolar stronghold, Di Chuan was also waiting for news. Delta Origi and Lian Yi were also with him. It had to be said that Leng Shiqi was the most worried about Di Chuan in this group, so he had Gu San keep an eye on him to prevent him from causing any trouble. In the bipolar mountain stronghold Master Xiao Jingwu immediately rushed over when he heard that Wan Xiaoyuan had returned. He was a little worried when he heard that Wan Xiaoyuan had left alone after being defeated. He wasn't worried about Wan Xiaoyuan's safety. After all, this place was near the bipolar mountain stronghold. Wan Xiaoyuan wasn't weak, so there shouldn't be any accidents. What Xiao Jingwu was most worried about was Wan Xiaoyuan's mentality. He was very fond of Wan Xiaoyuan as a disciple. Not only was his talent outstanding, but he also treated him as a father. This made Xiao Jingwu, who had no children in his life, treat him as his own son. Therefore he did his best to nurture Wan Xiaoyuan. Unfortunately, Wan Xiaoyuan was good at everything, but his shrewdness was too shallow. On the stage he almost lost his mind after being provoked by Zhu Lin. How could he take over the bipolar mountain stronghold in the future? After seeing Wan Xiaoyuan, Xiao Jingwu secretly sighed in relief. He comforted him. Xiaoyuan, master knows about the matter. It's fine if you lost. Before we didn't have the extreme cold spirit pond, weren't we still a second-rate sect? As for that Jilan, it's nothing. Master has specially found a few good women for you. In a few days you can choose as you wish. You have to know that there are many women who want to be your wife. After receiving Leng Shiqi's support, Wan Xiaoyuan also gained some confidence in his heart. His mentality also changed a little. He smiled gently at Xiao Jingwu. He smiled at Xiao Jingwu and said, I've troubled master. Disciple only likes Jilan, but master can rest assured that one day I will take back Yilan with my own strength. Wan Xiaoyuan's reaction made Xiao Jingwu slightly stunned at first, then he laughed and said with relief, Good Xiaoyuan, it seems that after experiencing a setback you've grown up. Failure isn't terrible. Next time we'll win it back. Master is very pleased that you have such thoughts. Master, in fact I came back this time to ask for leave. I want to go out and travel. First, I can relax, and second, I want to challenge geniuses from all over the world in order to improve my strength. Wan Xiaoyuan cupped his hands. Good. Xiaoyuan, go ahead. Master will go prepare some resources for you. Xiao Jingwu patted him on the shoulder and left in a good mood. Wan Xiaoyuan used the excuse of going out to travel as an excuse to go into the dense forest of White Long Valley, preparing to practice the Thousand Eyes Silk Hands with Leng Shiqi. But on this day, just as he walked into the dense forest, he saw a familiar figure crying quietly. It was Ji Yilan. Seeing Ji Yilan, Wan Xiaoyuan's heart was immediately in a mess, and his face showed a complicated expression. When Ji Yilan heard the movement behind her, she turned around and saw Wan Xiaoyuan. She immediately smiled like a flower and threw herself into Wan Xiaoyuan's arms with a wisp of fragrance. Wan Xiaoyuan was instantly stunned. His whole body became very stiff and he didn't know where to put his hands. He subconsciously wanted to push Ji Yilan away, but with his beloved woman in his arms, he was very reluctant to do so. Whoa! Ji Yilan cried like a pear blossom in the rain. When her cries reached Wan Xiaoyuan's ears, he was heartbroken. Ji Yilan raised her tear-stained face and pleaded, Xiaoyuan, you must save me. It was Zhu Lin who forced me. He said that if I didn't obey him, he would destroy my Ji family. You will definitely help me. You will definitely save me, right? Wan Xiaoyuan was so angry that his face turned red, and the veins on his face bulged. Yilan, you were really forced. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Zhu Lin. You despicable and shameless person. I will kill you. I will definitely kill you. What? Xiaoyuan, you can't do this. Zhu Lin is the young master of extreme fire manner. If you kill him, you will bring a great disaster. Besides, you can't beat him. You must not be impulsive. Ji Yilan said with concern, and then her expression became sad again. Ji Yilan's words not only didn't make Wan Xiaoyuan afraid, but also made him even angrier. Especially when he heard that even Ji Yilan thought that he couldn't beat Zhu Lin, he secretly vowed to kill Zhu Lin to prove to everyone. Chapter 436. In the following days, Wan Xiaoyuan followed Leng Shiqi to practice the cold underworld Thousand Silk Hands. Leng Shiqi didn't lie. Wan Xiaoyuan had the foundation of the extreme cold underworld Thousand Silk Hands, so he was able to learn it with half the effort. In just a few days he had already reached the entry level. Wan Xiaoyuan's heart was filled with boundless hatred, so he cultivated day and night. Leng Shiqi estimated that he would reach the proficient level in a few days. The proficient level of the cold underworld Thousand Silk Hands was enough to kill Zhu Lin. On this day Leng Shiqi said, Xiaoyuan, you've already cultivated the cold underworld Thousand Silk Hands to the proficient level. Now, even if you fight Zhu Lin, as long as you perform normally, you can easily defeat him. Wan Xiaoyuan nodded confidently. He had been using the cold underworld Thousand Silk Hands for the past few days, so he was very clear about the power of this spiritual technique. When I go back, I'll send him a challenge. I want to defeat him and take back Yilan. At this time, Leng Shiqi showed a strange expression and said, I'm afraid you can't take back Ji Yilan. Senior, what do you mean? Wan Xiaoyuan asked doubtfully. Leng Shiqi explained, you've been cultivating here these past few days, so you haven't been in contact with the outside world. In fact, Zhu Lin had already given the Ji family betrothal gifts a few days ago. In terms of etiquette, Ji Yilan is already Zhu Lin's wife. No. Wan Xiaoyuan's expression suddenly changed. Ilan can't marry that bastard Zhu Lin. She's not willing, she's being forced. Moreover, who doesn't know that Zhu Lin is a playboy by nature? Who knows how many girls he has ruined? Ilan won't have a good ending if she marries him. Sigh, Leng Shiqi suddenly sighed and said, but what's done is done. Wan Xiaoyuan immediately felt as if he was struck by lightning. He was stunned for a moment before roaring, impossible. They're not married yet. Besides, Ilan isn't that kind of person. Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, who told you that you can't sleep together before marriage? Moreover, Ji Ilan was such a person. Their Ji family was just a small family. Ji Ilan had no other strong points other than her good looks. She was choosing between you and Zhu Lin, but Zhu Lin defeated you in front of everyone. He is also very good at coaxing girls, so why would she choose you? Since she had already chosen Zhu Lin, she naturally had to quickly tie him up. The only method Ji Ilan could use was to use her own body to tie Zhu Lin up. No. I don't believe it. Wan Xiaoyuan felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. He muttered in a rough voice, but a few days ago Ilan came to me for help, saying that she was forced. Leng Shiqi said, obviously that was her last test for you. She wanted to see if you would do anything. However, you've been cultivating here for the past few days. She didn't see you move, so she thought you gave up. So she threw herself into Zhu Lin's arms. Ah. Wan Xiaoyuan held his head with both hands and roared, Ilan isn't that kind of person. She wouldn't lie to me. If you really don't believe it, I can take you to see it for yourself. Wan Xiaoyuan immediately paused. Then Leng Shiqi threw him a wide black cloak. Put this on first. Don't let others recognize you. Also, if you hear anything, don't take it to heart. Wan Xiaoyuan took the cloak in confusion. He didn't understand what Leng Shiqi meant, but he still put on the cloak obediently. Then the two rushed to Shaining City. It was late at night, but as soon as they entered the city, Wan Xiaoyuan could hear people talking about him from everywhere in the streets and alleys. Everyone was talking about how unbearable and incompetent he was. Not only did he lose the arena and the extreme cold spirit pond, he even lost the woman he loved. He was really a piece of trash. Wan Xiaoyuan's hands were trembling. He didn't expect that in the eyes of outsiders, he was such a piece of trash. He was so angry that he almost couldn't control himself. However, Leng Shiqi held him down and brought him directly to a famous restaurant in Jianghu City. He even booked a private room for him. Before Wan Xiaoyuan could react, Leng Shiqi directly sealed the meridians in his body, making him unable to move. Leng Shiqi said softly, I'm afraid that what you hear later will stimulate you, so I'll temporarily control you to prevent you from doing anything stupid. Wan Xiaoyuan couldn't even move his mouth. He could only use his eyes to show a puzzled look. Leng Shiqi drank wine by himself. According to his plan, Ji Ilan would soon bring Zhu Lin here. Sure enough, after about half an hour, the door next door was opened, and the laughter of a man and a woman could be vaguely heard. Leng Shiqi waved his hand, and a strange spiritual power spread out. The wall, which was originally good at soundproofing, immediately became useless, and the voices next door could be clearly heard. As soon as he heard the man's voice, Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes immediately widened. The owner of that voice was Zhu Lin. However, when he heard the other woman's voice, he suddenly became a little absent-minded, because the woman turned out to be Ji Ilan. In the middle of the night, Ji Ilan and Zhu Lin actually came to this private room together. Was there a need to guess what they were going to do? A burst of grief and indignation rushed to Wan Xiaoyuan's head, but he still had a trace of hope in his heart. He hoped that all of this was fake, that it was all a dream. But soon after, the sound of clothes rustling came from next door, and the two people's teasing laughter. Hee, my little baby, you missed me so much. Back then you wanted to follow that silly boy Wan Xiaoyuan. He's not as good as me. Annoying, why do you mention that trash for no reason? He's just a toad. He's not even qualified to carry your shoes. Aha, of course. Come, let your husband love you. The words of these two people fell into Wan Xiaoyuan's ears word for word. At this moment, he was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot, and the veins all over his body were bulging. He was constantly gasping for breath and his whole body was trembling. It was actually like this, they had already slept together. The woman he loved most betrayed him and had been using him. It turned out that in the eyes of Ji Ilan and Zhu Lin, he was just a laughable plaything. In his life he had never wanted to kill a person so much. If Leng Shiqi hadn't restrained him, he would have rushed out directly. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi decided to add fuel to the fire. His eyes flashed with multicolored light, and a voice directly appeared in Wan Xiaoyuan's mind. Go kill Zhu. Then he quietly withdrew his control over Wan Xiaoyuan, and Wan Xiaoyuan instantly smashed the wall in front of him. Chapter 437. The wall collapsed, giving Zhu Lin and Ji Yilan a fright. However, when Zhu Lin saw Wan Xiaoyuan walk in from outside the wall, he immediately revealed a smug and mocking smile. So it's you. I heard that after you lost in the arena last time, you went to cry. You're really useless. Now you actually dare to appear here. What? Do you want to fight me or do you want to see me having fun with Lan? At this point, Zhu Lin unscrupulously hugged Ji Yilan in his arms. Ji Yilan also revealed a charming smile, completely ignoring Wan Xiaoyuan's existence. However, Zhu Lin didn't expect that Wan Xiaoyuan would stretch out his hands with hatred. Immediately, dozens of cold nether threads surged out and were about to strangle Zhu Lin. Tisk, it's still the same old trick. Zhu Lin still looked down on Wan Xiaoyuan, thinking that he was still using the extreme cold ice silk hands. However, as soon as he unsheathed his sword, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Wan Xiaoyuan's cold nether threads were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye they surrounded Zhu Lin like a spider web. Furthermore, there were streams of cold air rushing over, causing Zhu Lin to feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Zhu Lin finally realized that something was wrong, but it was already too late for him to react. In a hurry he could only stab out a few times in a row. Unfortunately, the extreme fire absolute sword he was so proud of was unable to do anything to the cold nether threads. Suddenly those seemingly soft cold nether threads became like spears, instantly shattering Zhu Lin's sword and fiercely stabbing into his body. Zhu Lin was immediately bathed in blood. What made him even more terrified was that there were streams of netherworld energy invading his body and mercilessly devouring his vitality. At this moment, Zhu Lin looked at Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes that were filled with killing intent and hatred. He finally began to regret it. Although he didn't know why Wan Xiaoyuan had suddenly become so strong, he knew that if he didn't escape, he would die here. With great difficulty, Zhu Lin took out the crimson bead from his mustard seed bag. Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. With a move of his arms, the cold nether threads became soft and boneless again, binding Zhu Lin and making him unable to move. This time Zhu Lin was truly in despair. The cold nether threads were getting tighter and tighter, and the netherworld chi was constantly invading. He could only exclaim, Wan Xiaoyuan, are you crazy? You dare to kill me? Do you know the consequences of killing me? The extreme fire manor would definitely fight to the death with the bipolar village. You are harming yourself, harming the bipolar mountain village. However, Wan Xiaoyuan acted as if he didn't hear Zhu Lin's words. His spiritual power surged as dozens of cold underworld threads squeezed Zhu Lin's body, causing blood to seep out. Wan Xiaoyuan smiled ferociously when he saw the blood. Die. Puchi. Zhu Lin was instantly killed by the cold underworld threats. Blood flew everywhere and he no longer looked like a human. The blood-red color in Wan Xiaoyuan's eyes began to fade slowly. His body swayed and was about to fall down. At this moment, he saw Ji Yilan with a frightened expression. Ji Yilan immediately cried out, Xiaoyuan, don't kill me. Don't kill me. I was forced. Forced? Wan Xiaoyuan smiled bitterly and didn't look at her again. He was about to leave this place in a daze. Now that Zhu Lin was dead and his great hatred had been avenged, he didn't feel the slightest bit of joy in his heart. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly rushed over. He grabbed Wan Xiaoyuan's shoulder and said angrily, How can you be so foolish? I taught you the spiritual technique so that you can defeat Zhu Lin, not kill him. Do you know how much disaster you have brought to the bipolar village? Wan Xiaoyuan and Zhu Lin didn't fight for long, but the commotion was not small. At this moment, many people had already gathered their heads to look over. At this moment, Wan Xiaoyuan also regained some rationality. He panicked and asked, Senior, what should we do now? What should we do? Of course we have to escape. There are many disciples of the extreme fire manor in this city. Let's escape before they know about this. Upon hearing Leng Shiqi's words, Wan Xiaoyuan finally reacted and hurriedly rushed out of the door. But just as he was about to escape, he turned around and asked, Senior, what about you? Leng Shiqi said softly, I have my own way to escape, but I don't want to be involved in such a big mistake. From now on, our fate is over. We won't meet again. Wan Xiaoyuan's figure paused, but he also knew that he had made a big mistake. He didn't want to involve Leng Shiqi, so he immediately escaped. After he left, Leng Shiqi turned to look at Ji Yilan. At this time, the grievance on Ji Yilan's face was gone. She said with a bit of fear, "I've done what you asked me to do. You should also fulfill your promise. Don't worry, the people of the Ji family won't be in danger. On the contrary, they will get some precious resources, but—" Leng Shiqi looked at Ji Yilan with murderous intent. Ji Yilan said in horror, What do you want to do?" After a few breaths, Ji Yilan became a corpse, and the way she died was no different from Zhu Lin's. Leng Shiqi then quietly left. At the same time, the people who were watching the show also came over. As soon as they came in, they saw two tragic corpses on the ground. From the appearance, it was impossible to recognize who they were. But these people still recognized the scattered swords and clothes. The two corpses were actually the young master of the Extreme Fire Manor, Zhu Lin, and his fiancée Ji Yilan. They then thought of Wan Xiaoyuan, who had just fled in panic, and a shocking thought appeared in everyone's mind. It was Wan Xiaoyuan who killed Zhu Lin and Ji Yilan. It was not a big deal for him to kill Ji Yilan. After all, the Ji family was only a small family. But Zhu Lin was different. The Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold had decades of enmity. Now that Wan Xiaoyuan had killed Zhu Lin, it was very likely that the two sides would fight to the death. Everyone present knew that the vicinity of Shining City would not be peaceful in the near future. At this time, the news of Wan Xiaoyuan killing Zhu Lin had spread throughout the entire Shining City in just a few minutes, as if it had grown wings under the influence of some people with ulterior motives. There were many disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold in the city. When they heard the news, they immediately took action. The people of the Extreme Fire Manor naturally chased after Wan Xiaoyuan, while the people of the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold had to protect Wan Xiaoyuan. Battle after battle broke out in the middle of the night. At first, the battle only revolved around Wan Xiaoyuan, but it was inevitable that there would be casualties in a battle. In addition, both sides had long disliked each other, so it gradually evolved into a chaotic battle between a large number of disciples. In a dilapidated house in Shining City, there were about 20 people standing. When they heard the fighting outside, one of them said, "Brother Lu's plan has succeeded. Next it's our turn." Chapter 438. In Jianghu Manor, the owner of the manor, Zhu Huarong, was playing chess with First Elder He. Beside them, a man was standing with his hands behind his back. They were the top 3 masters of Jianghu Manor, all of whom were masters of Gang Spirit Realm. More than a year ago, there were only 2 masters of Gang Spirit Realm in Jianghu Manor. At that time, Jianghu Manor had swallowed most of the resources, but one of them, who was at the peak of Spirit Aperture Realm, had some inspiration in the battle with Jianghu Manor and broke through to Gang Spirit Realm. This made Jianghu Manor a blessing in disguise. A master of Gang Spirit Realm was far more precious than those resources. But at this moment, a man ran in hurriedly from outside. Zhu Huarong frowned. He had a bad temper. The reason why he played chess with others was to relieve his bad temper. Seeing the man come in, he knew that the man must have something urgent. He said unhappily, "What's the hurry? Tell me slowly." Manor master. Young Heights Lord he. Zhu Huarong saw the man stuttering and had an ominous premonition. He picked him up instantly and asked, "What happened to the Young Heights Lord?" "Young Heights Lord he is dead. He was killed by Wan Xiaoyuan." Boom. It was as if a bolt from the blue had struck Zhu Huarong's head, making him feel dizzy. Impossible. Zhu Huarong roared to the sky. His son was dead? He had a son at an old age, and Zhu Lin was a rare genius. He was waiting to hand over Jianghu Manor to Zhu Lin in the future. But now his son was dead. Zhu Huarong emitted visible flames all over his body, burning the air around him and twisting it. The first elder next to him was much calmer. He asked hurriedly, "What the hell is going on? Tell me." The messenger said hurriedly, "Young Heights Lord was killed by Wan Xiaoyuan in a restaurant in Shining City. Many people saw it at that time. Later, the brothers in the city all went to kill Wan Xiaoyuan after knowing it, but the people of Bipolar Mountain Village also came to stop them. Now there have been more than a dozen battles in Shining City, and dozens of brothers have died in the hands of Bipolar Mountain Village. Manor Lord, you must avenge the young Manor Lord, and avenge our fellow disciples." Zhu Huarong was already furious. He roared, "Lead all the experts in the manor to Shining City. I want to kill Wan Xiaoyuan with my own hands." However, He Ho stopped him. Manor Lord, please calm down. This matter is strange. Wan Xiaoyuan's strength is obvious to all. How could he possibly kill the young Manor Lord with his strength? There must be something fishy going on here. Perhaps this is a plot against you, Manor Lord? So what? Zhu Huarong didn't listen to He Ho at all. He said, should I just sit back and watch if Luan dies? He is my son, my only son. Even if there is a conspiracy, I'm not afraid. He Ho was even more worried about letting Zhu Huarong take the risk, so he advised earnestly, Manor Lord, please calm down. As the Manor Lord, if anything happens to you, then our Extreme Fire Manor will definitely fall into a bottomless abyss. How about this? Let Ji-Wen take some experts to capture Wan Xiaoyuan. As long as we capture Wan Xiaoyuan, we can use him to threaten the bipolar stronghold. At the same time, we can also test if there is anything fishy. If there is nothing fishy, it will not be too late for you to do it yourself. Zhu Huarong's face was gloomy, and he was like a volcano that could erupt at any time. He couldn't wait to kill Wan Xiaoyuan right now, but as He Ho said, he was the head of a sect and couldn't be impulsive. He panted and hesitated for a while, but still nodded heavily. He Ho said to the man who had been standing beside him, Ji-Wen, immediately take 30 disciples in the 4 realms of celestial being to capture Wan Xiaoyuan alive. Yes. Ji-Wen was a new expert in the gang spirit realm of the Extreme Fire Manor. He immediately went out with the messenger. He asked, where is Wan Xiaoyuan now? Near the White Long Valley. On the other side of the bipolar stronghold, Xiao Jianghu, the head of the bipolar stronghold, also got the news that Wan Xiaoyuan killed Zhu Luan. His first reaction was that it was impossible. Others didn't know Wan Xiaoyuan's ability, but he, as his master, knew it best. He was the first one who didn't believe that Wan Xiaoyuan could kill Zhu Luan head-on. But the fact was in front of him. Wan Xiaoyuan really did it. Xiao Jingwu couldn't help but remember that Wan Xiaoyuan had said a few days ago that he would take back his glory sooner or later. Alas, what has Xiaoyuan experienced these days? How did he kill Zhu Luan? How dare he kill Zhu Luan? The Extreme Fire Manor had lost many disciples in the spiritual pulse realm in the Phantom Spirit secret realm, and many resources had been stolen by an evil beast. It was reasonable to say that the Extreme Fire Manor should be declining slowly. However, the Extreme Fire Manor had Ji-Wen, a master in the gang spirit realm, which was completely different. No matter how many resources and disciples in the spiritual pulse realm there were, they were far less than a master in the gang spirit realm. Now the Extreme Fire Manor had one more master in the gang spirit realm than the bipolar stronghold, and Wan Xiaoyuan had killed Zhu Lu and Zhu Huarong would definitely not let it go. Once the Extreme Fire Manor came, what should he do? Xiao Jingwu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, thinking hard about the solution. At this time, the deputy chief of the bipolar stronghold, Hao Yushan, who was in the gang spirit realm, said, don't worry, chief. According to the intelligence, Xiaoyuan is not dead yet, nor has he fallen into the hands of the Extreme Fire Manor. And I think Xiaoyuan is likely to be used by someone. Although he doesn't have the ability to kill Zhu Luan, it is possible that someone secretly set him up. The urgent matter now is to take Xiaoyuan back and figure out the ins and outs of the matter. You are right. Xiaoyuan is near the White Long Valley. I'll take someone to pick him up. Xiao Jingwu was about to leave. No, chief, you can't go. Hao Yushan continued, if you show up, Zhu Huarong will also show up. By then, this matter will be completely blown out of proportion. It's better to send more disciples in the spiritual aperture realm and the spiritual pulse realm to pick up Xiaoyuan. Okay, but you must send more elites to ensure Xiaoyuan's safety. Both the Extreme Fire Manor and the Bipolar Stronghold took big actions and sent their masters to the White Long Valley. However, the more than 20 masters in the 4 realms of celestial beings sent by the Bipolar Stronghold were intercepted halfway. There were only a dozen people who intercepted them. These people were all masked and dressed in black, and they were all masters in the spiritual aperture realm. At the same time, Ji-Wen of the Extreme Fire Manor was rushing with a group of disciples. Suddenly he stopped abruptly. The disciple behind him asked, Elder Ji, what's wrong? Ji-Wen's eyes flashed with cold light and he said in a cold voice, come out. What kind of hero are you hiding? Swish, swish, swish. As soon as his voice fell, a dozen black shadows appeared in all directions. One of them chuckled and said, Elder Ji is really a master in the gang spirit realm. You were discovered so quickly. This man was Leng Shiqi. Chapter 439. It was Leng Shiqi who had brought half of the masters of the elite club to kill the people of Extreme Fire Village. Except for Lian Yi, these people were all in the Spirit Aperture realm. There were more than 20 people in Extreme Fire Village, including 5 in the Spirit Aperture realm, a dozen in the Spirit Pulse realm, and Ji Wen in the Spirit Gang realm. Without Ji Wen, Leng Shiqi's side could completely crush Jianghu village. But this master of Gang Spirit realm was like an unshakable mountain. Ji Wen looked at Leng Shiqi and others and was secretly surprised. When did so many Spirit Aperture realm masters appear near Saining City? It seems that the first elder is right. There is indeed a mastermind behind Zhu Lin's death. However, for him, these Spirit Aperture realm masters were nothing. He said coldly, "Who are you? Do you know what will happen to you if you stop me?" Leng Shiqi ignored Ji Wen. He waved his hand, and the dozen people behind him immediately rushed out. Although they were fewer in number, their strength was far superior to the people of Extreme Fire Village. Ji Wen was stopped by Leng Shiqi. Ji Wen thought that Leng Shiqi was also a spirit cultivator in the Spirit Gang realm, but he found that Leng Shiqi was only in the middle stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. He couldn't help laughing. "What, do you want to stop me or do you want to die?" Leng Shiqi didn't answer. He directly pulled out the inky jade sword, and a ferocious bloody light suddenly burst out from the dark blade. A blood-colored sword light slashed out like a waterfall. Ji Wen snorted coldly. Using his palm as a blade, he slashed out. In an instant, a crimson flame spiritual highland exploded. A dense flame burned the night sky and directly tore apart Leng Shiqi's blood-colored sword light. "If you only have this bit of ability, then please go to hell," Ji Wen said with a cold smile. Leng Shiqi carefully sensed the spiritual fluctuation of Ji Wen's attack just now. He could feel that Ji Wen could easily break the bloody sword light without using his full strength. Could be seen that Gang Spirit Realm was really powerful. However, since Leng Shiqi dared to stop Ji Wen alone, he naturally had the confidence to do so. With a thought, a fist-sized 5-colored goo worm flew out. This was the Goo King that Leng Shiqi had been cultivating for a long time. Through his continuous feeding of experience pills and various rare resources, the Goo King had now evolved into a rank 4 monster beast. Furthermore, it also possessed various strange abilities. Then Goo King released a 5-colored light that shrouded Leng Shiqi. In an instant, a set of 7-colored scale armor appeared on his body. The aura of Leng Shiqi's spiritual energy suddenly increased to the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. This was one of the Goo King's abilities after advancing to stage 4, Armor Transformation. The Goo King's transformation into armor not only allowed Leng Shiqi's spiritual energy to soar, but also allowed Leng Shiqi to use part of the Goo King's abilities. Leng Shiqi waved his sword again. The blood in his body boiled wildly, and the evil blood chi filled the sky. A sword light that was several times more powerful than before swept toward Ji Wen. This time, Ji Wen's expression was a little dignified. He held a short knife in his hand, and the red flame on it had almost condensed into a substance. Immediately, a huge flame knife surged out. The majestic and scorching aura made the other people who were fighting tremble and quickly retreat. Leng Shiqi, who was facing the flame knife, stretched out his left hand at this time, and mysterious green lights sprinkled out. After these green lights met the flame knife, they constantly swallowed and melted the power in it. In an instant, the huge flame knife dissipated by more than half. The blood-colored sword light and the flame knife intertwined. Blood chi and flames exploded, and violent spiritual energy spread out, overturning the ground within a radius of dozens of feet. Ji Wen's face immediately showed a bit of surprise. What method did the other party use to greatly weaken his flaming blade? Leng Shiqi used another ability of the Goo King, Devouring Soul. This was very similar to Princess Carol's Devouring Soul Goo, but the Goo King's ability was much stronger than the Devouring Soul Goo. After all, once the Devouring Soul Goo devoured too much spiritual energy, it would explode and die, but the Goo King wouldn't. Instead, it could devour a part of the spiritual energy for its own use. Taking advantage of this moment of surprise, a blood-colored jade mark appeared on Leng Shiqi's forehead. His face suddenly became a little pale, but the aura on his body was close to the peak of the Spirit Aperture realm. This wasn't the end. A terrifying evil blood chi surged out of his body and attached to the 7-colored scale armor and the black jade sword. It was the evil resisting art. At this moment, Leng Shiqi used all the enhancement methods he could except for the magical beast blood pattern armor. The reason why he didn't use the magical beast blood pattern armor was that Lian Yi was here. He once wore the magical beast blood pattern armor in front of Lian Yi and pretended to be a demon spirit. In order not to be recognized, he couldn't use it at this time. Leng Shiqi's sword style changed, and hundreds of three-ju sword chi sprayed out like a torrential rain, crisscrossing and covering the night. Jiwen didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. His blazing blade aura rolled back and slashed out, and the blade light of more than 10 feet fell down. Immediately, pieces of blade aura burst up, shattering the three-ju sword chi one after another. Leng Shiqi's series of changes immediately attracted everyone's attention, and the people on his side were surprised and happy. Before coming here, Leng Shiqi said that if there were masters of the spirit aperture realm, he would hold them back. At that time, no one believed him at all and thought he was bragging. However, Leng Shiqi had fought with cultivators of the spirit aperture realm twice in a row, and he was not injured. Especially at this moment, he showed a strong foundation of strength. It seemed that he could really fight with cultivators of the spirit aperture realm. On the other hand, the disciples of the extreme fire manor were in despair. They were defeated by Dongfang Qi, Buyangqiu and the others in one blow. They had only fought for a short while, but they had already lost 3 or 4 people. Their biggest hope was Jiwen. As long as Jiwen could kill Leng Shiqi and free his hands, they had nothing to be afraid of. But now it seemed that Jiwen couldn't kill Leng Shiqi in a short time, so what awaited these disciples of the extreme fire village was only death. In fact, Jiwen was the most shocked. So far, he had fought with Leng Shiqi 3 times, but Leng Shiqi's 3 moves were stronger than the previous one, and they were several times stronger. Leng Shiqi was so powerful that Jiwen had to face this battle with the eyes of the same level. Jiwen clenched the hilt of his saber, and the blazing blade aura, which was as red as blood, flickered with a bit of black gold, which looked a little strange. Unconsciously, even the temperature in the surrounding air became abnormally dry. He moved his body and in an instant the fire soared into the sky and tore the night sky. The surrounding area was filled with dazzling flames. The dozens of people fighting on the other side didn't even care about their opponents and hurriedly retreated. But Leng Shiqi stood still. Chapter 440. Facing the monstrous blazing spirit gang that swept towards him, Leng Shiqi formed a seal with both hands, and a palm print of several feet in size appeared. There was one yin and one yang in the palm print, the extreme yang through the heavens, and the extreme yin through the underworld. Extreme yang underworld palm print. These two completely opposite forces actually perfectly fused together in Leng Shiqi's hands. Not only were the two forces fusing, but they were also destroying the other forces around them. Jiwen's terrifying blazing spirit gang instantly began to distort. If those blazing blade auras were like the surface of a lake, then Leng Shiqi's extreme yang underworld palm print was like a large stone smashed into the lake, stirring up the entire surface of the lake. When all the blazing blade auras dissipated, Leng Shiqi only took a few steps back. Jiwen's expression sank and he waved his blade again. Like a hidden dragon soaring into the sky, the blade light was resplendent. The demonic aura around Leng Shiqi continued to rise, and the surging demonic aura could be seen clearly in the dark night. There seemed to be a demonic dragon churning in the demonic aura, and a pair of ferocious demonic dragon claws reached down and grabbed the resplendent blade light. Demonic dragon claw. After Leng Shiqi cultivated the Imperial Fiend art, the power of this move became stronger, and it could be ranked among the top of all his unique skills. One demonic dragon claw was destroyed by the blade light in 2 or 3 breaths, but the second demonic dragon claw finally blocked the blade. Jiwen's 2 consecutive moves were blocked by Leng Shiqi, and he was not injured at all. He even seemed to be at ease, which made Jiwen shocked, angry and hateful. But this time, Leng Shiqi made the first move. He stretched out his 10 fingers and 10 streaks of blood like thunder flashed past in the blink of an eye. Thunder exploded and blood flashed. Each streak of blood was the thunder blood heavenly finger. Jiwen was about to wave his blade, but at this moment, he was surprised to find that a muddy swamp had appeared under his feet. This strange swamp was covered with cobwebs, and the threads were intertwined, making him a little scared. Jiwen snorted coldly, and his spiritual highland erupted. In the blink of an eye, the spider web swamp was blown away. But at the same time, the 10 thunderclap blood heavenly fingers had already shot in front of him. He took a step forward and flames surrounded his body. It was as if the god of fire had descended. The surrounding ground was incinerated, turning into scorched earth. Those raging flames condensed into pillars of fire, colliding with the thunderclap blood heavenly finger. The blood line collided with the raging flames, causing a thunderous explosion in the night sky. Countless pieces of gravel flew everywhere, but they were all crushed into fine powder by the powerful force. When all the light dissipated, Ji Wen's eyes narrowed slightly because he did not see Leng Shiqi's figure. Ji Wen held his breath. Leng Shiqi's trickiness had completely exceeded his understanding. At this time, a sense of danger appeared in his heart. He suddenly sensed a wave of spirit power coming from the sky. He quickly looked up and saw Leng Shiqi, who was covered in a variety of spirit lights, floating in the air. On Leng Shiqi's back, there was a pair of 5-colored wings that were more than 10 feet long. This pair of wings was the flying ability that the Gu King evolved after devouring the soaring Sky Gu. Leng Shiqi looked down from above, and layers of formations of different colors and shapes appeared behind him. Looking carefully, there were exactly 5 different formations superimposed together, and bursts of heart-palpitating spirit power were emitted. Ji Wen's brows furrowed deeply. Leng Shiqi was actually a spirit caster. It was not that he had never fought with a spirit caster before. He also knew that if he wanted to defeat a spirit caster, he had to fight in close combat before the other party released a powerful spirit skill. But Leng Shiqi was floating high in the sky at this moment, making him a little helpless. Although Ji Wen also had many long-range methods, he was still lacking compared to a spirit caster, and it would consume a lot of his spirit power. So Ji Wen decided to defend and wait for an attack. Leng Shiqi stood in the air like a god, the wings behind him stretched out, and the formation flashed. He waved his hands and the formation behind him continued to rotate. The 5 formations immediately shot out streams of light of different colors. Those streams of light were like a brilliant meteor shower. The streams of light of different colors contained different powers, and the most powerful of them were the streams of light of red and blue. The streams of light of red and blue contained both the power of red flames and frost. This move was originally the spirit skill rotating light stream formation that came with the 5 god flowing light secret art. Later, Leng Shiqi integrated the fire and ice tornado into it, and it became the current rotating fire and ice stream formation. The streams of light fell from the sky, and Ji Wen was instantly drowned in it. But Ji Wen's expression calmed down again. He held the long sword horizontally in front of him, and a shocking sword intent filled the air. Under the guidance of the aura, the countless streams of light that fell 10 feet away from him were annihilated into nothingness. Of course, Leng Shiqi didn't expect the rotating fire and ice stream formation to suppress Ji Wen, but the most powerful part of this move wasn't its explosive power, but its ability to continue. As long as you had enough spirit power, you could maintain the rotating fire and ice stream formation. So, this dazzling meteor shower didn't stop, which shocked Ji Wen. Originally, he thought that Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only at the spirit aperture realm. Even if his cultivation was increased, his essence wouldn't change, and it couldn't be maintained for a long time. But as time gradually passed, Ji Wen found that Leng Shiqi's aura was still very stable, and there were no signs of excessive spirit power consumption. However, Ji Wen himself couldn't hold on any longer. Although he didn't use a lot of spirit power, and only used his own sword intent to defend against the enemy, this consumed a lot of his mind. If this continued, although he wouldn't be injured, his combat power would seriously decrease. He couldn't be so passive anymore. Ji Wen waved his sword, and the red flames on his body flowed. There was no killing intent in his sword momentum, but it carried a powerful sword intent that could destroy the world. This was the strongest sword move he had comprehended since he advanced to the spirit aperture realm, but this move also consumed a lot of spirit power, and he didn't want to use it casually. Even he didn't expect that this move would be used on a person at the spirit aperture realm. Ji Wen was also very confident that this move was enough to break all the formations, and could also seriously injure Leng Shiqi. Sure enough, things were as he expected. This move was like cutting tofu, easily breaking the streams of light in the 5 formations including Leng Shiqi. Seeing this scene, Ji Wen first smiled slightly, but the smile on his face immediately froze. This was because the formation in the sky and Leng Shiqi's figure had dissipated like illusions, turning into multicolored glazed flowers that floated down. Confusion appeared in Ji Wen's eyes in an instant. At this moment, the flowers in the air suddenly bloomed, and countless petals drifted away. However, every single petal contained a strand of Tridamai's sword chi. Chapter 441. Thousands of Sanju sword chi scattered down, forming a boundless sword prison. There were real and fake sword chi in these sword chi like a dream, it was impossible to guard against. When the sword chi approached him, Ji-Wen suddenly bit the tip of his tongue to wake up. Then there was a hint of horror in his eyes. He had just seen the power of Sanju sword chi, but now there were thousands of sword chi. As far as he knew, even a sword cultivator of Spirit Gang realm might not be able to wave so many sword chi in an instant. How could this not shock him? In the face of this dense sword chi, Ji-Wen was about to make a move, but at this time he found that hundreds of Leng Shichi had appeared strangely around him. These Leng Shichi slashed out ferocious bloody sword light one after another, forming a sword net that trapped Ji-Wen in it. The sword chi in the sky and the scarlet sword net on the side made Ji-Wen a little bit unprepared. If he was still a little shocked just now, then at this moment he could only say that he was in disbelief. It was hard for him to imagine that this was a sword skill that a spirit cultivator of Spirit Aperture Realm could display. Ji-Wen's face was fierce, and the long saber in his hand roared angrily, setting off layers of blazing saber aura that shattered the sword chi and sword light. He actually wanted to break the skill with force. However, the Leng Shichi's chaotic flowers' gradually dazzling eyes was too strong, and the sword chi and sword light were overflowing, mixed with illusions. Under the cover of this sword prison, the long saber in Ji-Wen's hand actually had cracks. His spirit saber was also a 6th level spirit weapon, but the Leng Shichi's inky jade sword was even sharper. Under the storm-like attack, it seemed to be about to shatter Ji-Wen's weapon. Ji-Wen suddenly roared angrily. Crimson flames surged around his body. The raging flames continuously condensed into several crimson runes that were imprinted on his body. Then Ji-Wen's whole body emitted red light, and even his eyes shot out 2 5-foot-long flames. He used his palm as a saber, and the saber intent that wanted to destroy everything appeared again, and a shocking red flame saber light slashed out. The blade aura instantly defeated all the sword aura and sword energy. Even the phantoms of the Leng Shichi were scattered. However, Ji-Wen did not relax at all because he still did not see Leng Shichi. He panted heavily as his eyes swept across his surroundings. At the same time he expanded his perception to the maximum and finally detected a trace of abnormality. That strange movement came from underground. Suddenly the ground under Ji-Wen's feet began to crack, and bursts of green light shot out like the sun. Immediately, the Leng Shichi rose from the ground with the poisonous sun in his hand and fiercely blasted Ji-Wen's body. As Ji-Wen had just unleashed his power, he was still a little weak. He was caught off guard and was hit by the shining sun poisonous yang palm. He could only raise his red flame spiritual gang to offset a part of the palm power, but he was still sent flying. At the same time, the poisonous flames entered his body, causing Ji-Wen to raise his head and spit out a mouthful of blood. He hurriedly mobilized his spiritual power to suppress the poisonous flames. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned. They didn't even care about their opponents. They all looked at Leng Shichi in disbelief, especially Dongfang Qi, Bu Yangqiu and others. They thought that it was shocking enough that Leng Shichi could stall Ji-Wen, but now he could even hurt a master of the Spirit Gang realm. Those people from the Extreme Fire Manor were even more ashen-faced. They were already at a great disadvantage and all their hopes were pinned on Ji-Wen. However, Ji-Wen was no match for a spirit cultivator of the Spirit Aperture realm. This surprised them and made them even more worried about their own lives. However, Leng Shichi did not just want to hurt Ji-Wen. He put away the black jade sword and raised the devil arrival battle saber in his hand. Pure demonic aura surged with ferocious chi. At this moment, all his spiritual power and strength were gathered on the devil arrival battle saber. Ji-Wen keenly felt the strong murderous intent on Leng Shichi. At this moment he really felt the threat of death from the bottom of his heart. An idea that should not have appeared in his mind, and that was, escape. A master of the Spirit Gang realm had to escape from a spirit cultivator of the Spirit Aperture realm. This was the biggest joke in the world. However, Ji-Wen did not care about his face at all. He cared more about his own life. Although he himself did not believe that Leng Shichi could kill him, he remembered that when he almost died in the hands of a demon beast, he also felt the same. Even if he was wrong, he would be punished when he returned to the sect. Moreover, now it seemed that even if he could kill Leng Shichi, the other disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor would all die. He could not escape anyway, so he might as well leave. Unfortunately, just as he was about to escape, Leng Shichi moved. Leng Shichi suddenly swung his saber. When the saber slashed out, the surrounding space seemed to be frozen. Everything around him turned grayish-white. There was only a flash of saber light with various colors. This saber light seemed to split the sky and earth, cutting the gray space in half. Ji Wen's body was about to be cut in half, but at this time his body suddenly bloomed with a dazzling bloody light. At the same time the jade pendant at his waist shattered, and a deep red flame emerged to protect him. This was Ji Wen burning all the chi and blood in his body in a hurry, and he used his life-saving trump card. However, these things all returned to nothingness under that slash and were completely annihilated. Fortunately, Ji Wen had finally left the gray-white space. He looked at the hideous and terrifying huge wound in front of him. Just a moment ago he had almost been cut in half. Just as he was rejoicing that he survived, an invisible blade suddenly rushed into his brain, strangling his spirit and consciousness. Ah! Ji Wen held his head and wailed in pain. At this moment, Leng Shiqi quietly appeared beside him and easily chopped off his head with a swing of his sword. At this moment all the buffs on Leng Shiqi had long faded, and his face was extremely pale, but his eyes were frighteningly bright. Especially when he held Ji Wen's head in his hand, it scared everyone out of their wits. The disciples of Extreme Volcano Village only felt a roar in their heads, as if the sky had collapsed, and their vision turned black. Ji Wen was dead? This spirit astral realm expert was dead? And he died in the hands of a spirit aperture realm expert. This was too absurd, and it was to the extent that they thought they were dreaming. Unfortunately, this was the truth. These people were stunned, but Dongfang Qi and the others were not. Although they were also shocked by Leng Shiqi's terrifying strength, they could not believe that Leng Shiqi could kill Ji Wen. However, they were all elites with real power, so they quickly reacted and killed the disciples of Extreme Volcano Village one by one. Chapter 442. Rumble. Only a moment later, there was only one person left in the group of people from the Extreme Fire Village. He should have been dead for sure. However, there was an extremely powerful treasure on him that released explosive flames. The power in it was extremely powerful. Leng Shiqi and the others could only retreat. The person took advantage of the chaos to escape. However, when he ran a few feet away, hundreds of cold underworld threads entangled him. Extreme cold ice silk hands? You are from the Bipolar Mountain Village. The person immediately shouted in shock and anger. Unfortunately, most of the cold underworld threads were melted by the terrifying flames when they passed through the sea of fire. They did not stop the person. The disciple of the Extreme Fire Village was pleasantly surprised again and fled in a hurry. Dongfang Qi walked to the side of Leng Shiqi. At this moment, the way he looked at Leng Shiqi had completely changed. If he was not convinced of Leng Shiqi before, that thought had completely disappeared now. He even wanted to curry favor with Leng Shiqi. He was only at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, but he could kill a master of the Gang Spirit Realm. He could no longer be described as a genius. He was clearly abnormal. Such a person would definitely soar to the sky in the future. If he could please Leng Shiqi now, it would be of great benefit to Dongfang Qi in the future. Therefore, Dongfang Qi said with a smile, "Brother Lu is not only powerful but also wise. From the beginning, you have played the 2 second-class sects in the palm of your hand. I admire you." Bu Yangqiu also walked over and said, "Yes, Brother Lu's clever trick made the people of the Extreme Fire Village and the Bipolar Mountain Village fight. It gave us a great opportunity. Now, Brother Lu deliberately let the disciple of the Extreme Fire Village go. He wanted him to go back and report so that the conflict between the two sides will be more intense. As long as they fight to the death, the destruction of the Extreme Fire Village will be close at hand." The others also came up and complimented him. Now, Leng Shiqi had completely conquered these arrogant geniuses in terms of strategy and strength. Of course, they had no choice but to accept it. The record of killing a master of Gang Spirit Realm was too frightening. Among these people, only Lian Yi didn't say much. Instead, her beautiful eyes were fixed on Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi casually waved his hand and said, "You're flattering me. There's still a long way to go before we can complete the mission. Let's hurry up and meet up with Di Chuan." When everyone gathered together, Leng Shiqi knew that Di Chuan's plan was going very smoothly. Their battle prowess was completely overwhelming. Moreover, one of them had specially imitated the sword technique of the Extreme Fire manner and let the messenger go back. It was worth mentioning that the Delta Origi had performed exceptionally well during the battle. Not only did she fight 1 against 2, she even killed 2 Spirit Aperture Stage early stage spirit cultivators. This battle record shocked Di Chuan and the others. However, when Di Chuan and the Delta Orgi learned that Leng Shiqi had killed Ji Wen of Gang Spirit Realm, they were all dumbfounded. Although each of them had experienced great storms and had heard of the Spirit Aperture stage killing Gang Spirit Realm cultivators, it was only by chance that Ji Wen of Gang Spirit Realm. However, such a situation could only be achieved by someone at the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm by coincidence. However, Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only at the 5th layer of the Spirit Aperture Realm. It was too terrifying to be able to kill a Gang Spirit Realm cultivator at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture stage. Among them, Di Chuan's expression was the most strange. Only now did he know that when he fought with Leng Shiqi, the other party didn't use much strength at all. Otherwise he was likely to be killed on the spot by Leng Shiqi. Delta Orgi's eyes flashed with surprise. In fact, she was even more surprised. Her master, Bone Demon, had once explained to her the characteristics of each of the 4 realms of celestial being. Spirit cultivators of Gang Spirit Realm were actually qualified to touch a little bit of the power of heaven and earth. They used spiritual power as the foundation and external power as the supplement to steal a trace of the power of heaven and earth to condense Gang Spirit. Therefore, the fighting power of Gang Spirit Realm experts was very amazing. Not to mention other things, just Gang Spirit alone could crush spirit cultivators at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture stage. However, Leng Shiqi could cross several small realms and a big realm in a row and kill a Gang Spirit Realm expert. If Leng Shiqi could stall Ji Wen, Delta Orgi could accept it in her heart, but Leng Shiqi's strength was far beyond her expectations. Therefore, at this moment, Delta Orgi's hands hidden in her sleeves clenched tightly into fists. She thought to herself, I can't catch up with him after all? Leng Shiqi looked around and saw that there were no casualties, but a few people were injured. Finally, he looked at Delta Orgi again. He knew that Delta Orgi's strong character was up again. He could only smile bitterly and then asked, By the way, how is Wan Xiaoyuan? Di Chuan answered first, We have quietly killed him on our way back. Hearing that, Leng Shiqi nodded, Okay, I'll go to the Bipolar Mountain Village first. Now that Jihuishan Village has lost Ji Wen, a master of Gang Spirit Realm, its battle strength has been greatly reduced. It's easy to persuade them to attack Jihuishan Village. What we need to do is to use the power of the Bipolar Mountain Village to destroy Ji Wen. As long as they destroyed Ji Wen, their mission would be completed. The others were also half happy and half worried when they heard this. It had only been about a month since they came to Saining City. If the plan went well, they would soon complete the mission. The speed was really fast. However, their test was not only to complete the mission, but also to see their personal performance. The mission was completed too fast. Some of them had not had time to show off before it was over, which made them a little worried. Among this group of people, Leng Shiqi, Di Chuan, Dongfang Qi, Bu Yangqiu and others all agreed that they could pass the test. Even Delta Orgi had a great chance. After all, she had made great achievements. Therefore, they could only hope that they would be able to contribute more in the final battle and accumulate more merits. After discussing with the others, Leng Shiqi divided into 2 groups and went to the Bipolar Mountain Village alone. The others all went to the vicinity of Ji Wen and began to make the final preparations. Not long after, in Ji Wen's house, Zhu Huarong directly overturned the table in front of him. Say that again. Zhu Huarong pointed at a person and roared with a faint flame all over his body. The person he pointed at was the one who was deliberately released by Leng Shiqi. He said tremblingly, House Master Elder Ji Wen and other senior and junior brothers were killed. It was the people of Bipolar Mountain Village who did it. Although the leader hid his cultivation, he used ice silk hands. It can't be wrong. Xiao Jingwu, you destroyed my foundation. I'll kill you. When Zhu Huarong was about to go crazy, First Elder He-Ho came over. House Master, you'd better think about what we should do if the Bipolar Mountain Village attacks us. Chapter 443. In the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold, Xiao Jingwu also received the news that all the experts in his sect had died. He also learned that Wan Xiaoyuan had died in Jianghu. All of this was done by the Extreme Fire Village. Xiao Jingwu was both shocked and angry. Among the disciples he sent out, there were several Spirit Aperture Realm and a dozen Spirit Pulse Realm. These were the mainstays of the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold. With the death of these people, the Bipolar Mountain Stronghold could be said to have suffered a great loss. It would probably take more than 10 years to recover. And Wan Xiaoyuan's death had cut off the hope of the younger generation. Now, not only was the bipolar mountain stronghold short of manpower, but only Xiao Jingwu and the deputy chief Hao Yushan were left to support them. Xiao Jingwu couldn't wait to kill Zhu Huarong now. But he didn't dare. Instead he was worried. Because the biggest advantage of the bipolar mountain stronghold was that they had more spirit aperture realm and spirit pulse realm cultivators than the extreme fire village. Now that more than 20 people had died, this advantage was gone. But the extreme fire village had 3 spirit astral realm experts. If the extreme fire village attacked, he wasn't sure if he could withstand it. Hao Yushan also realized the seriousness of the matter and said, "Chief, should we go to the Discipline Commission to mediate?" The Discipline Commission always hoped that the territory under their jurisdiction would be peaceful. If the extreme fire village made a big fuss, the Discipline Commission would definitely be unhappy. They might as well prepare some gifts and take the initiative to mediate. Although they would lose face, it was better than losing their lives. Xiao Jingwu was naturally unhappy. No, the Discipline Commission will definitely ask for an exorbitant price. Rather than that, it's better to go to the Tang family and the Tenju Wu. Besides, if the extreme fire village wants to swallow us, aren't they afraid of breaking their teeth? I don't think they dare to fight to the death with us. Hao Yushan said worriedly, but even so, the extreme fire village will take away a lot of resources. It won't be long before we are left far behind by the extreme fire village. When you and I die, the mountain stronghold will inevitably be destroyed. Alas. Xiao Jingwu sighed deeply as if he had aged a few years in an instant. I know what you said, but what can we do? We have no other choice but to endure. Hao Yushan was just about to say something when a voice suddenly sounded out. Fort Master Xiao, forbearance can indeed temporarily alleviate the difficulties of the bipolar mountain stronghold, but blindly forbearance will only make the other party worse. Moreover, Fort Master Xiao shouldn't be thinking about compromising with the extreme fire manor, but how to destroy the extreme fire manor. Who is it? Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan's spiritual power surged violently, revealing a cold killing intent. There were still some spirit cultivators of the 4 realms of heaven and human in the bipolar mountain village. The 2 of them were masters of the spirit astral realm. This person could actually come here quietly. His strength could be imagined. A figure quietly appeared in front of them. It was Leng Shiqi. When Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan saw Leng Shiqi, they immediately felt that something was wrong. Originally, they thought that the person who could suddenly appear here should be at least in the gang spirit realm. But now, the other party's aura was only in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. Xiao Jingwu's killing intent became more blatant, but he didn't rush to make a move. Instead he asked, "Who are you? What's your purpose in sneaking into the bipolar mountain village? If you can't tell me why, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave." Hao Yushan also silently walked to the side of Leng Shiqi, and a gust of spiritual power enveloped him. Leng Shiqi said with a smile, "Fort Masters, you don't have to be so nervous. I'm actually here to give you gifts." Gifts? Gifts in this way? Of course, Xiao Jingwu didn't believe it. Leng Shiqi took out a mustard seed bag. Xiao Jingwu immediately made a vigilant action, and a strong spiritual pressure spread out. "This is my gift to the 2 Fort Masters. Please accept it." Leng Shiqi didn't care about Xiao Jingwu's action. He waved his hand, and suddenly more than 20 bloody heads scattered all over the ground with a strong smell of blood. Seeing these heads, even though Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan were both in the gang spirit realm and in high positions, they couldn't help but gasp. Because these heads were all from the disciples of Jihua Mountain Village. Because of the deep hatred between the 2 sides, they were also very familiar with the people of Jihua Mountain Village. At a glance, these heads were all from the disciples of Spiritual Pulse Realm and Spiritual Aperture Realm. Leng Shiqi said indifferently, "These people are the disciples of Jihua Mountain Village who intercepted and killed the bipolar mountain village on the way. Unfortunately, some of them are already dead and don't even have a complete head." Xiao Jingwu suppressed the horror in his heart. He suddenly thought of a question. Are they really the ones who intercepted and killed my disciples? Are they really killed by you? Yes. Nonsense. Xiao Jingwu shouted angrily, "Not to mention that these people can't kill so many of my disciples. You don't have the ability to kill them either." Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "Don't be too decisive. These heads are just small gifts. I have a big gift here. Please take a look." After saying that, Leng Shiqi took out another head. It was Ji-Wen's head. Hao Yushan immediately exclaimed, "This is Ji-Wen? How is it possible?" Xiao Jingwu also stared. Seeing Ji-Wen's head here, They understood that if Ji-Wen had made a move, he could have killed many of their masters. However, the other party could actually kill Ji-Wen and a group of masters of Jianghu Mountain Village. This showed that either the other party was terrifyingly powerful, or there was a group of powerful masters behind the other party. No matter which possibility it was, the other party was qualified to talk with them on an equal footing. At the same time, Xiao Jingwu keenly thought of one thing. That was, they did have the hope to destroy Jianghu Mountain Village. More than a year ago, Jianghu Mountain Village lost a large number of masters in the Phantom Spirit Secret Realm and the Demonic Beast Rebellion. This was a good opportunity for Bipolar Mountain Village to rise. However, unexpectedly, Ji-Wen appeared out of nowhere and advanced to Gang Spirit Realm. He alone was equal to a group of Spiritual Aperture Realm and Spiritual Pulse Realm disciples. But now Ji-Wen was dead and a large number of masters of Jianghu Mountain Village were also dead. This meant that Jianghu Mountain Village only had a few masters left. The reason why Xiao Jingwu wanted to compromise before was that he was not as strong as the other party. But now he found that Jianghu Mountain Village was even weaker. So new and old hatred surged in his heart. He could not wait to take people to attack Jianghu Mountain Village right now. However, at this time Hao Yushan asked coldly, "Then who are you? Why are you here?" Chapter 444. Facing the question, Leng Shiqi took out his identity token and said harshly, "I'm Lu Xingji, the Great Supervisor of Dark Thunder Guards in Donglin County." Dark Thunder Guards. Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan looked at each other. Obviously, they didn't expect that the newcomer was from Dark Thunder Guards. They looked carefully at the token in Leng Shiqi's hand. It was indeed the Great Supervisor of Dark Thunder Guards. It couldn't be faked and no one dared to do so. However, as a second-rate sect, Bipolar Village had to deal with Discipline Commission and Dark Thunder Guards. There were only a few great supervisors in Donglin County. How come they had never heard of Lu Xingji? Moreover, why did he help them? Leng Shiqi didn't lie to them. The token was real but not completely real. If Xiao Jingwu saw the back of the token, he would find there were two small words, West Wilderness. He was using the sword of the previous dynasty to kill the official of the current dynasty. Xiao Jingwu withdrew his spiritual pressure and cupped his hands. "Your Excellency Lu. I'm curious. Why do you want to help me destroy Extreme Fire Village?" "Merit." Leng Shiqi said, "To tell you the truth, I've just been transferred here. As you can see, my cultivation is still in Spiritual Aperture Realm. Some people don't like me. That's why I need a huge contribution to stabilize my position. Extreme Fire Manor's crimes are undeniable. Unfortunately, although I have some experts under me, it's still impossible for me to take down the Extreme Fire Manor. In addition, although Bipolar Village is now stronger than Extreme Fire Village, it's not easy for Master Xiao to bite this hard bone. Since neither of us can destroy Extreme Fire Village easily, why don't we join hands? It's a win-win situation." Speaking of this, Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan looked at each other. They were both tempted. Leng Shiqi led people to kill a large number of masters of Extreme Fire Village, including Ji Wen, a master in Gang Spirit Realm. As a result, the overall strength of Bipolar Village was higher than Extreme Fire Village. However, as Leng Shiqi said, it was not easy for them to destroy Extreme Fire Village. Even if they were to forcefully attack, they would also suffer heavy casualties. In this way, the gains would not make up for the losses. If Leng Shiqi and the power in his hands were added to the mix, the situation would be completely different. In their opinion, since Leng Shiqi could kill Ji Wen, it meant that there must be a master of Gang Spirit Realm behind him. At that time, as long as Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan delayed Zhu Huarong and He Ho, the others would slaughter the disciples of Extreme Fire Manor first, and then join forces to encircle Zhu Huarong. They would succeed. Leng Shiqi saw through their thoughts and continued, "The number of people I can use is not large, only a dozen or so, but these people are all at the Spirit Aperture Realm. More than 10 Spirit Aperture Realm experts. If that was the case, then this battle could be easily won." Leng Shiqi's words were like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Xiao Jingwu said directly, "Okay, I promise you." Hao Yushan gave Xiao Jingwu a subtle signal with his eyes, but Xiao Jingwu did not notice. He could only ask, "Sir Lu, forgive me for being a petty person and then a gentleman, but if we really manage to destroy the Extreme Fire Manor, what do you want?" He did not believe that Leng Shiqi only wanted a merit. Extreme Fire Village was a second-rate sect, and the resources it collected were shocking. Even if many of them had been stolen by demon beasts, those fixed resources could not be stolen. For example, spiritual veins, spiritual fields, and the extremely cold spiritual pond, etc. Lung Shiqi waved his hand and said, I want all the resources that can be taken away by Extreme Fire Village. Hearing this, Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan both frowned. Lord Lu's appetite is too big, isn't it? Hao Yushan said with a slightly unhappy tone, Our bipolar mountain village is the main force in attacking Extreme Fire Village. After this battle, who knows how many of our disciples will die. Also, we will have to stop Zhu Huarong and He Ho. If Lord Lu wants all the resources, forgive me for being blunt, but there's no point in doing this deal. Hearing this, Lung Shiqi laughed in his heart. He had guessed that they would refuse, but the reason why he purposely asked for so much was because he wanted to completely change the topic to the distribution of benefits after the battle. In this way, it would be a tacit agreement that they would work together to destroy Extreme Fire Village. That was what he thought, but his face still darkened. Fort Masters, as far as I know, there aren't many resources in the Supreme Fire Manor. Moreover, after this matter is over, all of Extreme Fire Village's territory, spiritual veins, businesses, and especially the resources of their disciples will be yours. This is a great benefit. If you two are so calculative about such small benefits, then I can leave immediately. I believe that Zhu Huarong will welcome me. Lung Shiqi's last sentence shocked Xiao Jingwu and Hao Yushan. They immediately thought of a possibility, which was that Lung Shiqi needed a great contribution. If Lung Shiqi could choose to help them destroy Extreme Fire Village, then he could also do the opposite. As for whether the bipolar mountain village had made a mistake or not, it was up to Lung Shiqi to decide. Are you threatening us? Hao Yushan said in a low voice. Lung Shiqi shook his head. I brought the heads of Extreme Fire Village's experts to see you too. This is already the greatest sincerity I can show. However, the two of you want to haggle over such a small amount of resources with me. This kind of vision and mindset is truly disappointing. Xiao Jingwu coughed dryly. Ahem, Lord Lu, please be patient. We'll do as you say. Next, let's discuss the specific plan. Plan? Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows and asked, Master Xiao, do you know the approximate number of Spirit Aperture Realm experts in Extreme Fire Village? Xiao Jingwu picked up a few heads from the ground and piled them to the side. Apart from these people, there should only be 8 or 9 people left. Lung Shiqi smiled. 8 or 9 Spirit Aperture Realm experts. Then what's the point of planning? Just fight and be done with it. We have more than 20 Spirit Aperture Realm experts on both sides. In front of absolute power, what's the point of scheming? Xiao Jingwu was stunned at first, then he laughed loudly. Brother Lu is right. When he said Brother Lu, Lung Shiqi knew that it was done. After Lung Shiqi left, Hao Yushan immediately said, Master, there's something wrong with this Lu Xingji. Xiao Jingwu replied, There's definitely something wrong with him, but our goal is the same. We both want to destroy Extreme Fire Village. When we attack Extreme Fire Village, we must be on guard against him. 2 days later, in Extreme Fire Village, Zhu Huarong and He Ho were pacing back and forth in the hall. Especially Zhu Huarong, who was sweating profusely. As the leader of a second-rate sect, he shouldn't be in such a state. However, he couldn't be blamed for this. After He Ho's reminder, he had indeed thought of the possibility that the bipolar mountain stronghold would attack the Extreme Fire Manor. After all, the hatred between them was too deep. Of course, they couldn't just sit and wait for death. Very quickly, they sent disciples to the nearby sects to ask for help, hoping that they could mediate. But until now, not a single person had returned. All the disciples that were sent out seemed to have disappeared into the sea. They lost contact with them, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The entire Extreme Fire Village seemed to be shrouded by a layer of dark clouds, pressuring people to the point that they couldn't breathe. He Ho deeply felt that Extreme Fire Village must have fallen into a huge conspiracy, but he couldn't figure it out at the moment. Suddenly Zhu Huarong slammed the table. I've had enough. Rather than waiting here blindly, why don't we just fight to the death with Xiao Jingwu? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.